Mr. Travis and Mr. Corey are out. Mr. Johnny, would you please lead us in the invocation, followed by the pledge?
Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to be out here tonight to discuss and address drainage issues in Ascension Parish for our citizens. We ask that you bless us and guide us in all our actions here tonight. May your Holy Spirit be with us at all times, for we place our lives in your hands always and forever. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, anyone wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign in and give that to Miss Liz, and she'll make sure she gets it up front. And I promise you, everyone will have a chance to speak if you wish to. We'll go on to number 4, the acceptance of May 10th and May 20th meeting.
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Michael, second by Mr. Johnny. Under the chairman's report, Mr. Chase has a quick PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Chase?
Thank you, Chair. I've been working on this for a few weeks, and I hurried and kind of rushed it today to get it out. I figured we'd have a little crowd here with all the weather events and the flooding issues we've been having. So this is basically just a bunch of things that we've been working on for the past, 16, 17 months, and I just wanted everybody to kind of be privy to the details of things that we're all working on, things that we're planning on, and all that stuff, especially while we had a good crowd here. All right. In January 2021, we reached out to the Director of Hydraulic Operations Manager of the Harris County Flood Control. Oh, I'm sorry, I got more cords. I'm sorry. Mr. Jeff Lindner, about bringing, for anybody not aware, Harris County is where the city of Houston is located. And so we reached out about bringing our delegation from Ascension Parish there to go tour and learn about their state-of-the-art flood warning system that they have. It's one of a kind, and it's impressive. So in mid-March of this year, 12 of us, parish president, some council members, and his key staff, we took the trip and went and spent 3 days looking at their structures and their structures and the technology that they use. As most of us are aware, in 2017, they had an event very, very similar to what we experienced in 2016. And so on this trip, we learned about, their lessons learned and how they better utilize their tools to help protect and or warn citizens whenever the area is in immediate danger during these flooding events. And so one of the first things we really seen was their rain gauges. It's called a SCADA system, is what they have. Jefferson Parish in Louisiana has a very, very similar setup. And this gauge right here is a 2-part system. So the bucket you see at the top, it measures the rainfall, and this is all in real time. Currently we rely on the USGS gauges, which update once every hour. And these mechanisms right here would allow us to see actual rainfall with only a 10-15 second delay to show us real data. And you see the box at the bottom, and that second sensor is actually measuring the depth of that channel. So with this one with this one piece of instrumentation, you're getting actual rainfall and you're measuring the depth of your canals. Let's see, so this I got an abbreviation there because I'm not saying that every time, but Harris County, they use this to evaluate and make tough decisions on where the greatest risk is as these weather events are happening. For example, what channels of water are close to coming out of its banks? Where's the most rainfall happening at that time? What's the effects of that rainfall in that location? Information like this will allow us to make better time decisions on when to activate our force pumping system. For example, I have an example here. In Gonzales, the city of Gonzales, right in the middle of the parish, if we have a 3-inch rain event over 6 hours, it's going to take quite some time for that water to get into Bayou Francois and make it to Marvin Bro And like we seen 2 weeks ago, you know, we had 14, 15 inches of rain on the western side of the parish. It takes a long time for that. It takes a long time for that amount of rainfall to get into New River, Black Bayou, to Goudine, and make it to our forced pumping system. So we're hoping that this gives us better information, better data on how to use our pumping systems. Let me see. And so, and these red triangles right here is their system. So every red triangle you see is one of their what's the word I'm looking for? Rain gauges. There you go. Is one of their rain gauges. As you can tell, they have, you know, plenty. And this is what theirs looks like. So they, this is on a stream they have called Willow Creek. Just for reference, put Bayou Manchac right there. You know, so our historical data can tell us at X amount of feet, whenever Bayou Manchac is 14 foot, we're going to start to see some issues right there. And this real live data will allow us to see in real time exactly what's Bayou Manchac looking like, what's the swamp looking like, what's Black Bayou looking like. And this is the second part of it, is that they have so many of these that they have this capability to, based on the amount of rainfall and the elevation, they have this technology to where they can not guesstimate, but within a reasonable assumption, they can on their major canals, they can see exactly what they think that those bodies of water are doing at that time, based on the elevations, based on rainfall. In January 2021, this commission, we approved a contract with HNTB for a floodplain management plan to complete an H&H model for the entirety of the east bank of Ascension Parish. These gauges, along with the H&H modeling, will I'm sorry, I keep losing my spot. These gauges, along with the H&H model, we will have showing the sheet flow of water to and within our major waterways, give us real-time factual data, and that's information we've never had. On our agenda tonight, we have our first discussion and potential approval of acquiring and installing 10 of these gauges throughout the parish. They'd be co-located with the USGS gauges to make for easier and cheaper installation. This is one of my favorite things to show everybody. When we talk about H&H modeling, you know, it took me a long time to fully understand what that is, and I got Stoker looking at me. I still don't think I fully understand what it is, but I do like, you know, graphics that show me. And these two pictures, in the picture to the left, what you're seeing is actual data from 2016. That dark green area in the bottom left, that is inside of the Laurel Ridge and Marvin Bro levee. And that diagonal line is the diversion canal. And the colors here are actually opposite. Blue is dry land and green is water. So you can see the inundation that we had in 2016 and actual data. You know, the white lines is the amount of water flowing and everything else. Well, if you look to the right, with the Laurel Ridge levee extension and the Highway 22 gapping project, you can see with this data, with those two projects, how much drier we would have been, how much water would have been kept out of the parish. And that's what we're hoping that this H&H modeling does for the entirety of the parish. It's going to show us our weakest points, where we need the projects, what we need to do moving forward. And I have these side by side. So if we start to build up our rain gauge criteria and the quantity that we have with the H&H modeling in the parish, we'll be able to make a lot of drainage improvements and do things based on factual data that we haven't in the past. All right, the second biggest thing that we learned while we was there was a regional detention. Harris County has hundreds and hundreds of these large regional detention areas. And you know, I'm not talking about a few acres. We're talking about 40, 50, 100 acres. And what they have right here, so this is actually a combination. One thing unique that they do as well is they use these drainage retention areas as recreation areas. They kind of, you know, get more bang for their buck. As you can see right here in that bottom right corner, you'll see that big concrete piece right there. So that's a weir. If you look to the bottom right, you can see that concrete canal, you know, that's running at an angle right there. And this is designed to where whenever that concrete canal, call it Bayou Northeast. Bayou Northeast starts to overbank and is coming outside of its bank. And this is designed so they go in here and they dig out, dozens or hundreds of acres. They'll dig at 6, 8, 12 feet. Once that canal gets to X amount of foot, at 10 foot, we're going to start getting water outside of the banks, and we need somewhere to store it for a couple of days temporarily. And so that elevation allows it to overflow into this basin. And then that basin is going to hold that water right there for a few days until Bayou Northeast goes down, and then it'll slowly drain back into the canal whenever we have the capacity to take it. Let's see. Got some more pictures right here. Construction of the weir in that top picture. In that bottom picture, that was one of their largest. That was one of the largest dry detention areas that they had. You can see the concrete lines, running all through. And what that does, as the water drains into them low spots where the concrete is, that it goes to some culverts. And so the culverts are small, so it allows it to recede slowly. And so once it recedes, and you have this dry area. And we wasn't able to take an actual field trip and see one in person, but something else they do, this dry detention area right here, for 340 days a year, that is a dry bottom basin. They fill this thing up with soccer nets and playgrounds and everything else, and for 48 weeks a year, it's a recreation area. And then whenever it floods, if the playground equipment gets wet, as soon as the water goes down, it's going to dry off, and you have more. On the left right here is kind of what we see here a lot, smaller areas, and that's designed to hold the water for that one piece of property. And on the right, you can see in Houston, they do a lot of the concrete line and ditches, and it helps with the maintenance. You don't have to dig it and cut the grass and everything as much. It costs you a little bit more on the front end with the concrete. This is just some visuals of more retention areas. As you can see in the bottom picture, them trees and all that dark grass, that is designed to have some shrubbery there. And that neighborhood, you can see it back there on the right, that neighborhood and everything around it drains into here. It holds the water for a few days and then slowly releases it. Let's see, this is a picture that on one of our field trips right here. And all the way to the left, you can see the water a little bit, but that's a very large canal right there. And then once it gets up to that concrete level right there, which I think that might be a little John Diaz on top of there. But once it gets up to right there, it's going to start to overflow into this large drainage basin. That's dozens and dozens of acres. It's about 10, 12 feet deep and just holds tens of thousands of gallons of water. And here's a picture from the top of it. Wet bottom. So the first question we had, half of this parish is extremely, extremely low. We all know that. So if we go to dig, dry detention area, how do we actually have a dry bottom with such a high water table and low land? And they make it work. With the wet bottom, they say, look, that's just as good. As long as you keep 3 or 4 feet of water in it at all times, the grass won't grow too much. But it's possible. In your Dutchtown, Prairieville areas, of course, your dry detention is going to be ideal. But towards the east in your Galvez and Centermar areas, I'm thinking it's going to look more like this. Here we go right here. This was another field trip that we took right here. You can see the homes to the right, and they came in, and that's roughly about a 7-foot fall where that concrete wall is. And this whole thing right here, it serves as a recreational park. They got about a 2-mile walking trail around it because this basin is huge. On the other side of that bridge, it's even bigger. So most time, this is just a walking trail with some playgrounds and all that stuff. You can see the playgrounds way over there in the background. But then whenever it floods, it just takes the bridge and the playground underwater with it, and in a week it'll dry out and everything is back to normal. You can see the culvert there in the background. Let's see, development in the floodplain. Harris County also operates under a zero net field, just like we do. And it forbids fill of dirt from being brought into the 100-year floodplain without being mitigated. So during this process of expanding their regional detention program, they got even wiser and they stopped making citizens dig small ponds or, mosquito farms, we like to call them, in their yard and in developments. Instead of all these little bitty, quarter-acre ponds and all that stuff, what they did is started using these detentions where if you were building your house, you can buy credits from the large detention area for the citizens to build on. And for developments, they made them add and or and or expand, dredge the local waterways to accommodate for their development. So this right here, right in the middle of the picture at the top, that is the corner of 73 and 74. So all of the blue circles represent a retention pond that's in a development. And then right there in the middle where I got the big yellow one is just a big old piece of land. I don't know who owns the land, but it just large piece of land. And you can see in the bottom left, New River. That's right along the edge of New River. So as far as the dry detention goes, and you're moving in the future, and so instead of having 14, 15 of these small little, quarter acre, half acre retention areas, you have this dry detention basin where you can get your fill, you mitigate it, and it's also going to help with the overflow of our local waterways. I did another area right here. This is 42 and 44. I don't know, 18, 20 little ponds, and they got large tracts of land right there where the potential along Muddy Creek, along Muddy Creek where the land is. So this is one of their detention areas that they used for development. So you can see in April 2014 where it started, as people were building homes and building developments, they would buy their dirt, buy their credit out of there, and then so they expanded it. Let's see, how do we afford it? So we asked them that. How's it possible, to buy these large tracts of land and do this? And he said it was simple. What they would do, and I just threw some numbers out here, just for some simple math. If the parish were to buy 50 acres of land at $80,000 an acre, we're at $4 million. Let's say it costs us $500,000 to execute the construction of the basin. Basin's 8 feet deep for the 50 acres. You're looking at 2.2 million square feet. That gives you 17.4 cubic feet of dirt, which equals 645,000 cubic yards of dirt. At that rate, the parish would then need to sell the dirt for $7 a yard to the residents to break even while accomplishing zero net fill and regional detention. Once we completed the basin, we have our money back. The 4.5, we reinvest, we moved on to the next watershed and start our next dry detention. All right. Now, all this information. All right, having this information is no good if we cannot properly communicate it to the public. As events are happening, it's our duty to let the residents know what's going on in their area. And they design from scratch a communication website and an app to where any resident can go on there and check this out. And the famous line right there at the bottom, or the pump song. With a website or with an app, you could go on there and you can look for yourself. This is their app that they use, their website, so it's text message alert. And then right here, you can go in and you can actually punch in your address and you can get text alerts on two different gauges for the amount of rain, and then on two different bodies of water on the water level, so you can stay up to date. If you're living on Muddy Creek and you're worried about, Manchac getting high, you can get on here and you can see how much rain we're getting at that exact minute, how much we've gotten for the day, and then what does that body of water look like? Do I need to start worrying about my home? And, here we go. I'm funny, so, And last, but certainly not least, it's very blurry because he's very fast, but we got a picture of Davin Duplessis with no hat. So I've been waiting on that for a long time. So, all right, and that's it. I just wanted to let y'all know things that we're already working on, things that we're talking about, and all that stuff. So I appreciate it. I know I was rambling for a little bit.
Appreciate you there, Mr. Chase. We'll move on to no drainage announcements or report. We'll move on to number 6, the HNTB presentation. Mr. John?
Is that noise bad?
Oh, he had some questions.
Just came back.
Hold on just a minute, Mr. John. You had a question about the gauges?
I didn't have a question, I had a few comments about the gauges.
Go ahead, Mr. Robert.
The same system that Chase is talking about, we went and saw in Jefferson Parish. You have it all over the place, and it's huge. It's going to be a very dynamic aspect of fixing this problem, as drainage and rainfall is. And I'm very happy to see it on tonight's agenda. Secondly, we're talking about the retention areas. And I mean, I love the idea of a retention area. I think it's a great idea to have community banks or credit banks or mitigation banks to do this. But instead of spending $80,000 an acre, I think we should probably look for some property for $3,000 or $4,000 an acre in your outlying areas. You can go create some types of wet bottom areas like crawfish ponds, or maybe we could look at doing some type of spillway that you could even fill up around, put a wall around it. You know, I'd like to look at those ideas before we would spend any type of money like $80,000, $90,000 or $70,000 per acre for just retention. That's really all I had on those.
All right. Mr. President, you had?
There you go. I think you got me. Before we go any further, I think we had some people that want to discuss in the public comment period that is not on items on the agenda. If you just shift through the cards, I think someone had came up to me earlier before the meeting and wanted to speak during the public comment period about an item that was not on the agenda. And just to let everybody know, that buzzing sound is someone with a hearing aid in the audience. And we don't know who it was. This is the same situation we had last time, and we hadn't quite figured out how to.
Would those individuals please come up that want to speak on the agenda?
Yeah, not the hearing aid people, just the speakers.
Yeah, and just item 3.
We got some people that want to speak.
Yeah.
On the agenda.
So item 3 is to talk about any item that's not on the agenda that you're speaking on.
Number 3, everything's 7.
So, it'd be you. Yes, you came to talk to me, yes. You're on 3, so I don't know.
I'm sorry, here we
everybody
go.
else
Here's
is.
one.
You know, we skipped it, that's why.
I'm sorry, hold on just a second.
Is that Ms. Brandy?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Brandy, yep. I had you in the 7C pile. I apologize.
You can go.
Please, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Randy Lacey. Y'all ready? Okay. I live in I live on Silverstone subdivision. Our subdivision is about 20-something years old, maybe a little bit older. After the heavy rains, Mr. Ron came out. Mr. Ron said it had been 15 years since our ditches were dug or anything done in there. And I would like to be put on the next drainage board agenda to have our ditches lined with concrete. We have very few ditches in our subdivision. They're deep, they have a lot of vegetation. Myself has to cut. I'm a fairly large woman. We have some older couples in there. It would be a great way to discuss. I have started a petition in my subdivision. Due to the rain, I was unable to finish it, and I would like to submit it to y'all at the next drainage board meeting, and we look at concreting our ditches in my subdivision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, if there's no one else that wanted to speak on the agenda. Sorry, ma'am, would you state your name, please?
My name is Delva Stephen Shivers, and I live at 73 in Geismar. I noticed that he was talking about maybe a drainage area being built at 74 and 73. I'd like to know where that is. I need to explain why. I live 11273. I don't know if a lot of people know where Geismar Grocery used to be. Right now is Stony Point subdivision. I live kind of across the street from there. In 2000, I have lived there at that residence since 1977, but I lived about an acre from that. I was born about an acre from that. And I had never seen the water cross the road in front of my neighbor's house. The house used to belong to Joe and Lona Travis. They're deceased now, but their niece-in-law lives there now. That house has been flooded, I don't know, maybe about 3 times, but thanks to God that my house didn't get flooded. But I have pictures that can show that my house was like an island, water all around it. And I'm afraid now, if you divert that water to 73, my house will be flooded. I am divorced, single. I don't have an income that would allow me to pay $5,000 or $4,000 to flood insurance. I would be out of funds to pay my electric bill for probably 3 months and other bills for 3 months if I would save up that $5,000 for flood insurance. I'd like you to consider those people. It's not just me, it's other people in my area also that
Sure.
flooded out.
Ms. Shivers, please give your address to Mr. Ron so we can take care of that.
Okay, you want me to walk around there? and give it
Please.
to him? All right,
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else wishing to speak on any agenda? If not, we're gonna move on to HNTB presentation. Is it,
I'm
I'm so-
also on Highway 73, 122229, Highway 73. We're right near the fire station. There's a ditch that passed by the house that goes into Gonzales. It floods all the time. And I had a car flooded, my SUV that's very high, got water in it, and it floods all the time. And it seems like when they built the new fire station, it put more water on us. So I think that water, just like she said, I didn't catch the first part of the meeting, but it's diverting water on 73 is not gonna work. It is really, and it's going over to my neighbor's house. He flooded in 2016, but had never flooded before. It stopped in our yard.
okay.
And it's a lot. It's across from Rivergate.
If you don't mind, please give your address to Mr. Ron.
Thank you.
This is, yeah. Are you wanna speak on the Bluff Swamp, or you wanna speak on? Okay, let's, come on up, Mark. Speak.
Look, if it has anything to do with Bluff or New River, that would be item 7C.
I don't understand the difference in my comments and theirs, but I can wait. I don't mind waiting.
No,
Well,
come on up.
You sure?
Yeah, I got your card. That's what I'm.
You sure?
Well, if everybody starts coming up, then it'll be chaotic. Yeah.
Chaos.
There's a reason we.
Well, I'll be brief. My 3 minutes. My name is Marty Martin, and I live at the corner of Chester Diaz and Cornerview. And I saw a Facebook post, which sadly is how I hear everybody up here probably heard about a plan to divert some water from the Bluff Road to New River. And I'm here to ask that y'all stop the plan, if there is actually a plan, until we know more about it. Do we know how much it's gonna cost, or has it been engineered? What do we know about it? Most people who know me, especially my wife, will probably tell you I think I know more than a lot of people. I call myself an armchair hydrologist. So where I live is surrounded by New River. What a map says is New River. Some people call it Goudin. I call it the Lively Canal. It comes behind my house, and it completely surrounds me with water. Google Maps shows it going off into nowhere. It doesn't do that. It goes under Chester Diaz Road. And when water gets as high as it did 3 weeks ago in N16, it spills over into my neighborhood on me and all my neighbors. We got an 80-year-old lady back there who flooded the other day again. So I'm not saying I don't think the folks of Bluff Road deserve some relief. I grew up with them people. I know them people. I like them. I'm just saying that the people living along New River deserve the same if y'all are going to divert this water. It affects them. In 16 and in the most recent event, water flowed on our property in ways I've never seen water flow before. And by the way, I don't have any new significant development between me and this floodplain, none. I got there's nothing I can say development-wise that would have shed this water back on me. So the project should scare the hell out of everybody living on New River, honestly, I think. And if you're gonna add that much water, it's gonna make everybody down there's situation worse. It can't be now, I'm gonna skip some of my comments.
Well, we'll let you come
About
back.
why I think this all went down. But I'm just gonna tell y'all one last thing, and that's I'm trying hard to make my kids believe that they wanna stay here and raise their families and live here on family land. And they're getting old enough to understand they don't wanna live on land that fills up with water and doesn't drain. So I will say, we heard for 6 years, we're gonna fix drainage. I got one question for y'all. Is flex plan one word or two?
Mr. President, was that the 3, 4 you had that was on the agenda? Okay, well, we are starting back with the regular meeting. The meeting of drainage report, HNTB presentation, Mr. John.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'll try to be brief. I'm going to give you a floodplain management plan update and the things that we've been working on. I'm going to go over the schedule, data collection, the Louisiana Watershed Initiative efforts, which coincide with some of our efforts, the design criteria, the flood hazard assessment. We're going to look at the May 2021 flood event, and we're going to compare the 21 event to the 16 event for the Bluff Swamp. After the May 18th event, after suggestions by Ascension Parish staff and members of the steering committee, we put together an 18-month schedule. As some of you remember, this effort initially started out as a 23-month effort, but we put together a schedule, and we believe that we can get this floodplain management plan sometime in the end of August, September of next year. Data collection at Manchac, Henderson, and Bayou Pierre. To date, we have collected 94 structures and about 16.66 miles of channel, with Welsh Gully, Muddy Creek, and Henderson Bayou being 100% complete. This is what the upper basin looks like, and there's a legend of where we've picked up structures, cross-sections, and structures that are in progress. The Dewberry Louisiana Watershed Initiative effort is focused mainly in the Marvin Bro Basin. We have identified approximately 200 structures that will overlap from the LWI effort. That has a potential cost savings of $120,000. We will discuss in the steering committee meetings and determine that what we could do with those funds. We could either look for additional data collection or perhaps some additional scope. Dewberry's timeline in acquiring the 200 structures is estimated at 4 months, but the effort has gotten it started. So at some point, if Dewberry's task is not started, it may impact our 18-month schedule. So we'll cross that bridge when we find it. The design criteria methodology, we are performing internal QA/QCs and should have a draft for review in 2 to 3 weeks. The flood hazard assessment, we are continuing development of historical risk assessment. We expect a draft review in 3 to 4 weeks. We have began to update the Bayou Manchac HEC-RAS model, as well as the development of the Henderson Bayou model in the coming weeks. The May 18th of 2021 event, we developed the HEC-RAS images, which you see there, and captured the rainfall from May 10th to May 20th, just to put things in perspective. If you look at that red dot in the upper left quadrant, that was probably ground zero. That is the area that got hit the hardest. So in those 10 days, that area saw about 20 inches of rain. Some of the areas in Gonzales, they're in the kind of yellow area, were in that 10 to 12 inches of rain. And then parts of that Gonzales, like Sorrento and AC, got in about the 15 inches of rain area. We're going to focus our efforts on that little red dot right there and show you what that looked like, the precipitation in those 10 days. So we had gotten some rain on the 12th of May, and then we had those 13 inches in 12 hours on the 18th. and a total of 19 inches in 10 days. So what that looks like, based on NOAA's information, a 12-hour event, 13 inches in 12 hours is about a 500-year event. So it's hard to overcome a 500-year event, no matter where you are. Also, to put things in perspective, so the event on May 18th was exacerbated by, we've had about 32 inches of rain in the last 60 days. If you look at this chart right here, on or about the 15th, we had a huge spike, and then again, another spike May 8th, on or around May 10th, and then the big one on the 18th. So when you think about 32 inches of rain in 32 days, that just adds up to a lot of saturated soil and hard for that water to get out. Some of the efforts that we undertook after the 18th, CSRS sent crews out there to pick up high water marks. The legend here is every little blue star is a high water mark, and the little green flags are locations where we have pictures with high water marks. On the right of this image here, you see some of the locations where we have pictures of the high water marks and the survey crews in action. We're going to use those high water marks to calibrate our model. It's unique that, this event occurred, but our model should reflect what actually occurred on that day. We've also put together a volumetric tool to estimate water surface elevations in Bluff Swamp from an estimated rainfall depth. So for instance, if you look at an elevation on the left column, starting surface elevation of 10, and you go across and you look at 13 inches of rain, that puts you right around 12 feet. So 13 inches of rain increased the static water elevation in Bluff Swamp by about 2 feet, just from that event. Look at August 16 versus May of 21. The image you're looking at there is data collected from Alligator Bayou. That is on the Ascension side. If you start on or about August 10th, you can see the water surface coming in, this is backwater flood, plus water coming in from the EBR side. It stabilized on or about August 17th, and then you can see it really didn't move. There were some pumping efforts going on, but pumping didn't really move the needle a whole lot. Not until the cuts made on August 23rd and 24th. Those cuts were made when the water level at that gauge was 13. And then the Ascension side of the Bluff Swamp started to fall at about 0.2 foot per day. This is on that same time frame, but on the Bayou Manchac side, on the EBR side, you can see that it came up pretty rapidly, but when it hit that peak on or about August 13th, it started to fall pretty quickly. At a rate of about 0.4 per day, of a foot per day. Reason being that basin on the EBR side is much smaller, and all the water was still in Ascension. So when you have a much smaller basin going through the same outlet, you're going to drop a lot quicker. But then once the cut was made, you can see that it stabilized. It bottomed out at about 11.61 feet. It actually picked up on the EBR side until it stabilized on August 28th at about 11.84 feet. And then it also started to drop at about 0.2 foot per day. So I'm gonna back up a little bit. That's what the Ascension side looked like, pretty steady, and the EBR side. So the EBR side is impacted by the water coming out of Ascension when the cuts are made on the road. Now I'm gonna go look at May of 21 this year, and I apologize, the gauge was reading erratically. I can't understand why, but I did smooth the line out in some of those dates. So if you look at May 17th and you look to the right, you see the water coming up pretty much like it did in 16, and it peaked on or about the 21st. And then there was no change, which means the water just really wasn't moving out. Not until the cuts were made on May 28th at an elevation of 12.5, and then from that point on, the rate of fall was 0.2 foot per day. So between 16 and 21, that drainage basin behaved in the same identical manner. I think there's a point, and we have to figure this out. We haven't modeled it yet, and we haven't gotten all the information yet. But at some point, the number of cuts you make, or how deep the cuts are, there's a point of diminishing returns. We're going to find out what that point of diminishing returns is. And it's all because you're governed by the outlet at Bayou Manchac. It's just, it's kind of like having a plug at the bottom of your ice chest. You pull the plug, you're only going to get so much water out at a given rate. And then looking, last slide I have here is Bayou Manchac, the EBR side. You can see it spiked pretty quickly, And on or about the 21st, it started dropping at 0.4 foot per day till May 28th at an elevation of 11.4. The water levels were about, the difference level in EBR and Ascension were about 1.1 feet. And then after the cuts were made, again, they started falling at about 0.2 foot per day. So 0.2 foot per day equals about a foot of drop every 5 days. So if you got to drop the water levels in Bluff Swamp, say 5 feet, you're looking at 25 days to get that water there. So it's going to take a while. And it was evidence in 2016. So just some observations in the Bluff Swamp. Pumping alone does not move the needle much. You know, it just doesn't move a whole lot of water. It does move it a little bit, but not a whole lot. The answer is to cut the road. In both events, after the cuts were made, the rate of fall was 0.2 foot per day, or as I mentioned earlier, 1 foot every 5 days without additional rain. Now, mind you, if it doesn't rain, that's good, but just we noticed this past weekend, it rained a little bit, so the gauge just went up. The rate of fall out of Manchac Swamp is dependent on the outlet at Bayou Manchac. And then when the water surface elevation starts at 6, just as a rule of thumb, for every 7 inches of rain, you'll see a surface elevation increase by 1 foot, and 13 inches of rain will increase surface water elevations by 2 feet in that swamp. That concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions if you have any.
If you want to let him ask some questions, I'll go after, because I just had something.
Hit your button.
Oh, there it is. Kind of dead. Hey, there
All
we
right.
go.
Mr. Lawler?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. I have 2 questions. One, maybe you could help explain, because I think it's kind of a misnomer, and I heard some people in the crowd, 500-year flood versus 10-year flood, how that really is more of a percentage, and it's not that you get one of those once every 500 years. So can you help us with that?
Yeah, so let's see if I can go back to my presentation. But, I mean, it's, NOAA has a website where you go, and for any particular part of the world, you can get these gauges, and you can plug in an event such as this one. And that's why I included this snippet here. So, for instance, if we had gotten 10 inches of rain in a 12-hour period, that would have been equivalent to a 100-year storm. If you look at that, if you go from 12 hours, you got 376, 436, and so on till you get to that 10-inch, 10.2 thereabout. If we had gotten 6.36 inches of rain in 12 hours, that would be a 10-year event. So it depends on how much rain and the amount of time.
I guess I didn't ask the question right.
I'm sorry.
But I just think the term, because it confuses me all the time,
Oh.
the misnomer is that it's a 500-year flood or 500-year rainfall,
Event.
and you assume event that only happens once every 500 years. That's not what that connotates,
No,
correct?
that's correct.
That's what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
at.
so this is an event that has, so a 100-year event has a 1 over 100 or 1% chance of occurring in any given year. A 500-year event is a 0.02% chance of occurring in any given year. So where there's highly unlikely probability-wise, but it does have that chance, 500 or 0.02%.
And this may be out of your wheelhouse, but does NOAA ever update these? Because it seems like we've been getting more and more rainfall.
These are based on historical variance for a particular region. I don't know the answer to that, but I would imagine that they probably do tweak them after a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stoker Brown with CSRs. So the NOAA Atlas 14 data set was created using data up to 2012 and into the past. I believe the LWI is looking at getting the NOAA Atlas 14 values updated for the state of Louisiana. So in terms of, I guess, within the next 1 to 2 years, we'll have updated values, including, I guess, the last additional 9 years of information. In terms of that 500 year, there's a couple of important things that you need to understand is in order to have an accurate sort of 0.1% chance of occurrence, so 100 years, you need to have about 20 years of data, because that return interval is extrapolated out in time. And the longer you go out in time, the less accurate that estimate becomes. So in terms of a 500-year flood or a 0.2% chance of happening, it's really just a very unlikely event at that point. And then the other thing is that these are precipitation. This is a probability of precipitation, not a probability of water surface elevation. There are multiple ways that you can reach the same water surface elevation at a given point and location. For instance, in the Bluff Swamp, the 2016 event, the Bluff Swamp did not reach 13 feet because the rain fell within the Bluff Swamp. The Bluff Swamp reached 13 feet because the Amy River got elevated and backflowed into Bayou Manchac. This event was more of a rainfall event that happened right on top of it. So it's important to understand those two distinctions between these return intervals regarding precipitation and the resultant water surface elevation at a given location.
Thank you. And you kind of tied into my next question. I've been doing a little research on the LWI. They have a website that looks like the public can submit ideas to. Is that, do y'all know anything about that?
I'd say the website, yeah, there is an area where you can submit comments,
Oh, okay.
suggestions. Yeah,
If you could share that with me, and then we could share that to the public, because it's a great way. I know we had Mr. PT come up last time with some ideas that you could share it directly to the LWI, and all the public can do that also.
If you just, I believe if you Google Louisiana Watershed Initiative, it'll take you to that homepage.
Okay, great. Y'all heard that?
I'm sorry, is this better?
Hey, turning off the speaker. So we tried last time. We unplugged everything in here. The internet, the Wi-Fi, everything, and the ringing was still here. It's only our second meeting in this building, so we're trying to work out the kinks. I do apologize.
I'll go ahead and repeat that information one more time. If you Google Louisiana Watershed Initiative,
No. Sorry. Actually, and one of the
All right.
solutions, look, if y'all are interested about the website, I think we could probably put that up on the Parish website, a link to it, and then we could put that on our Facebook page. We could put on the Parish website the link to the LWI site where you could submit this. So hopefully in a couple of days we'll have that on the Parish website, and that way the entire public can start submitting ideas. Thank y'all.
Mr. Robert, did you have a question?
No, I have some comments. I was going to sit down first.
Thank you all. Oh, we got one?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, with the work we've tasked you to do, and, you know, Chase put up some good maps about where the water moves. How far away are we from like an inundation, a real-time inundation map of the parish?
We have 4 basins that we're going to model. The first one will be Manchac, and then Henderson and Bayou Pierre.
Right.
That data is about wrapped up, and so that will be the first one you see.
Okay.
I would say maybe in about 4 months, you should be able to have something to show you in the Manchac, Pierre, Henderson basins.
But would it be real-time?
When you model it, you have to calibrate it. Yeah, it's the amount. Yeah, that looks so.
Yeah, in terms of a real time, meaning like you can log onto a website and see what the potential inundations it could be, will not be 4 months from now. That will be the once the model is calibrated and validated, but also under the existing contract right now, there's no task order to transition this into a real-time model. The models will have been developed, but there's another step that needs to be taken in order to obtain the previous precipitation, the most recent precipitation, as well as potentially future forecasted precipitation. You got to process that and input it into the hydraulic model and then run it, and then that output would be either loaded up to a website for you to essentially go log into. So that later process is currently not in the scope of work of the floodplain management plan.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that, so I was on the Houston, I didn't want to give anybody the misconception that if we put in real-time rain gauges, we're going to have an app that gives you a map of a real-time inundation. And my understanding from the Houston, talking to the hydrologist, which I think is somewhat what you do, Stoka, it's something that has to be calibrated and pretty much paid attention to.
So if you have a very robust set of rain gauges, you could develop some interpolation techniques to take that elevations and flood it out onto a LiDAR surface without the need for a hydraulic model.
Okay.
But the accuracy of that inundation map is directly related to how many gauges you have in your system.
Okay. So I guess, I just wanted to clarify, to have the type of things with that app, to be able to pull it up and see water rising around your house is pretty complicated.
We'll have something to show you internally in about 4 months, but no.
Right, but that'll be a
web-based
one-time,
real-time.
it won't be
Yeah,
real time,
right.
and I just wanted to point that out.
Okay.
Because I think it's important if we're gonna have that product, it takes an additional product.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Mr. Robert?
Yes. Thank you, Chairman.
We're done? Okay, thank you.
You're good.
Oh,
Have a seat.
okay.
I just wanted to address the public with a few of the things that we are doing or that we have started, that you will see some relief within the next years. One of the big things is the Laurel Ridge levee, that we finally gotten to a point where we can begin construction on that. That'll be huge for the whole Sandoval area. We have is this better? We have the Laurel Ridge levee project, which is finally gotten to a point where we can start the project. It's going to be a huge help for the Sandoval area. We have got the diversion canal, not the diversion canal, the New River dredging project, which we have already got passed. We've got it not only budgeted, but it should be started already. That will hopefully be resolved over a legal matter in the very near future. So you'll see some relief in the whole New River area from dredging that whole waterway. A third project that we're doing, we just recently passed. It was a project that we got from the Pontchartrain Levee District, a project a lot of you may have heard about 10 years ago or so when St. James was supposed to build a levee. Well, they never followed through with it. Pontchartrain Levee District gave that to us. So we already passed it. We already budgeted the money. We've got $20 million plus budgeted right now with their match of 75% to break ground and start this project. This project is going to bring levee protection from the Marvin Bro pumps to Airline Highway, from Airline Highway to Sorrento, Conway Canal, and put a gate on Conway Canal and put a pumping station, which will allow us to pump down Conway. And I mean, that helps all of that area, including Gonzales, where some of your canals and whatnot are flowing that way to your pumping station. Now, that's actually already budgeted. We already have it passed with the money. The next phase, which we've approved but we didn't pass budget-wise, actually brings that from Conway all the way to the dump on Panama Canal. So now we will have levee protection from the Marvin Bro pumps all the way to Panama Canal with a gate on Panama Canal, which will allow us to drain and help all of the Pelican Point area, all of the Brittany area, all of that. Now, it's also going to help the entire parish in the fact that this provides levee protection, real levee protection or surge levee protection for the entire parish. So as of now, whenever you're pumping out, or we are pumping out at the Marvin Bro pumps, when water reaches a certain elevation, backwater comes back around and you're just recycling water. So it's not really, it's helping, but it's not helping. What this will do is seal that, and the water will not be able to come back around. And once we talk about, and we've talked about, but once we instate these ponds that Councilman Melanson was talking about, these retention areas, this will give us real-time relief in I guess, more community, like in subdivisions, in areas where you have flooding problems that we've had for years, we have real solutions that are doable. And I want to give y'all a little encouragement on that. We do have some things in play, and we are moving forward with these things. That's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Wagsback.
Oh, did I have the button?
I had the button.
Ms. Terry?
So, John, I wanted to ask you, the introduction of the new Frog Bayou Lock or Fish Bayou control structure, what kind of impact will that have on the dewatering of the Bayou Mansion, of the Bluff Swamp?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Yes. Tell me about the the new Fish Bayou Lock structure. So, several times during your presentation, you made mention that it's difficult to move water out of there because of the Bayou Manchac.
The
I mean,
Bluff
that's-
Swamp, yeah.
Exactly. So are we going to accomplish anything with the big locks? Or are we going to just run up against this same problem that we can't get out because of Bayou Manchac?
So it does help initially, especially when you have a foot or better of differential. Opening up those structures and cutting the road does help draw that water down initially. But then it stabilizes between the EBR side and the Ascension side, and then you're back at that 0.2 of a foot per day. So it does help initially, and it also helps you in the onset of an event. Say you got another tailwater event, you can still close those features and keep the water out of Ascension. So, but there is a point where once that water stabilizes on the EBR side and the Ascension side, you're at the mercy of that 0.2 of a foot per day rate.
Thank you.
John?
I'm sorry. I just want to tie into what Councilwoman Cazzo said. I'm not yelling, y'all. I'm just trying to make sure you can hear me. One of the things with the locks, it's my understanding that those can be open, though. So if we had an event like we had on May 18th, when we knew the water was high 2 weeks ahead of time, would the locks allow us to open up and allow, whether, even if it's 2 inches, 0.2 of an inch, let it slowly go down, but could we use those locks to drain the basin ahead of time to prevent what happened?
When you say the locks, you're talking about at Alligator Bayou and Fish Bayou?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If you had that kind of data in advance, you certainly could close them and start pumping. But the problem is the water comes up a lot faster on the EBR side. So you can't close them and keep that water on the EBR side, but then after a certain point, it just overflows over Manchac Road. And so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. The timing is of an essence, but with an event like we had on May 18th, it just, all bets are off.
Okay, thank you.
Hang on, Mr. John.
I don't have a question for you.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I don't. I just have a general comment. So for the public, I feel like we got a lot of people up here talking about different projects. I'd like to make a request that, Ron, Mr. Quintmont, can we see all these projects on a timeline, how they refer to the budget, how we're paying for them year to year? Because we're talking about some problem areas from recent rain events, but I've seen some areas in my district where, the Goodine and other places also need some attention. And, what kind of projects are we doing to local things that, I'd like to see that in accordance with the big capital projects, also see some small projects that we're working on, and see it from you guys, because we all have opinions up here, but you guys are the guys that know and do the real work. So I would make that request. Yeah, fine.
Mr. President?
Thank you, Chair. So one of those quick local projects is the one that this board supported, which is the gate valves in the weir. That will affect every branch, all 3 branches of Goodine. It will affect those people that flooded on 73. It will also affect all the people along New River, not only from the point of Cornerview all the way into Geismar, but also from Cornerview all the way in through Gonzales to the weir at Piccadilly or Walmart. So that will allow to adjust levels. Those levels are held at 3 foot. Those Gate valves would be in conjunction to ensure that there's no impact on the Highway 74 diversion, to ensure that those residents wouldn't have impact from that. It's not just one idea. There's several things that have to work together to ensure that no one's impacted. I would never, and I will say this loudly and proudly, I will never push water onto anyone else in order to save someone else and flood them. Never. I will never do that. And I grew up in Bonterra subdivision that used to flood countless times. I had to meet with those residents concerned, is more water in New River going to affect me? After I met with them and explained the process, they understood, no, it will not. This will only happen during drought conditions. And so that gate valve project, which is done in-house by us, which is already core permitted, is temporarily waiting on the First Circuit of Court Appeals that we're hung up at New River Dredging Project, which we hope to get resolved any day now. But that is a project we could do immediately that will help everybody on each of the branches of Goodine, including the entire New River Basin, north, well, actually west and north of those Weir projects. So that is something that's core permitted and something we can actually do very, very, very soon.
Hit your button for me, Mr. John.
Just a question, Mr. President. You talked about the floodgates in the Weir by Walmart. That's been permitted since like March, April. Is anything being done? We don't have to wait for a litigation on that, is that correct? I didn't hear.
I can't, let me see, only one mic at a time, so.
I would love the board to support that proof, so I'll move on that project tomorrow. I can start getting crews out there tomorrow.
I thought we did approve that to move forward. Okay.
Yeah, I apologize, but I think I can only turn on one mic at a time.
That's fine.
So every time you pause, hit your button again so I can come back to you.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, all right, Mr. Wagasback.
No, I was just gonna say, so with that project will help us without the dredging? Okay, so if I missed it before, I'm apologizing, but if that was the case, I mean, hey, come to us and tell us. Let's do it. I don't know why we're waiting.
All right, Mr. President.
I'll get started on it tomorrow.
All right, Mr. Lawler.
Yes, speaking of the dredging and this Highway 74 thing, what are the plans for Phase 2 of the New River Channel improvements? Where do we stand on those? I just want to make you more.
Yeah, all right.
This
great.
was so easy when our mics were just on. So the New River improvements in what aspect? The dredging part?
Yes.
That is at the First Circuit. Soon as that bid snafu that we're going to actually go in executive session at the end of this agenda, we'll discuss that lawsuit in executive session.
All right, any other questions, comments? I do want to apologize for Chairman Dempsey Lambert. He had an emergency, so he had to go. So as a vice chair, I'm taking over. So y'all are stuck with me the rest of the night. All right, moving on. We're going to go on to item 7A. Let's see, we got Mr. Jerome is going to do a presentation of requirements on rebuilding a flooded structure. How you doing, Mr. Jerome?
Thank you. Q. I have a little map I want to show the group. we can show the map here. That's not the map. It's hooked to the computer. I wanted to go over right now the requirements that we have with FEMA with our flood insurance program. And it's imperative that we have, there we go, all right. It's imperative that we do comply with the FEMA regulations on determining substantial damage on houses that were flooded. You can see by the map that we have here, we've mapped out, we've had 70 people so far that have phoned into the call center and have told us that they've had flood waters in their house. This is a rather general map. We cannot give out the specific addresses of those people who are flooded, but we just wanted to map them here. The area on the map that's indicated in blue is our flood area. It's the AE flood zone. The area in beige is not. That's the shaded X zone. Every property that was flooded within the flood zone has to be determined whether the repair is going to be substantial damage, whether they've determined substantial damage. So damage assessments are done after a natural event that has occurred where there's damage caused by rain, wind, hail, fire, tornadoes. When roads are safe, the community will go out and assess the loss and damage in a community and perform substantial damage estimates for those properties in the flood zone. All right, properties damaged in the X zone are not evaluated for substantial damage, right? Substantial damage is defined in 44 CFR 59.1, which is a FEMA regulation, means damage of any origin sustained by a structure whereby the cost of restoring the structure to its original before damage condition would equal or exceed 50% of the market value of the structure before the damage occurred. All right, so if it cost you more than 50% of the value of the structure, you're determined to be substantial damage. Again, only in the flood area. Work necessary to restore substantially damaged structure to its pre-damage condition constitutes substantial improvement, right? Regardless of the actual repair work performed. Therefore, when the NFIP regulations refer to substantial improvement, repair or substantial damage is included, right? When making a substantial improvement or substantial damage determination, the calculation is the same. The cost of the improvement or the cost to repair pre-damage condition is compared to the pre-improvement or pre-damage market value of the structure, right? So damage assessments are done on mapped special flood hazard areas on the firm, which is the flood insurance rate map in the AE flood zone. And those are the ones on the map that's indicated in blue, all right? There are some properties that may have what's considered repetitive loss, and that means that they've had an insurable, the property is any insurable building for which 2 or more claims of more than $1,000 were paid by the National Flood Insurance Program within any rolling 10-year period and that's since 1978. Repetitive loss property may or may not be currently insured by the NFIP, all right? So we're, right now, as I say, we've mapped these properties that have phoned into the call center. If someone has had flood damage, we'd like them to report to us so that we can look at the neighborhood. Some of the areas are still flooded. We are not able to get in there to do the determination right now, but if you can call the call center, it's area code 225-450-1200. Please call us and let us know if your home has been flooded, right? And we'll get that determination made, all right? And I'm available for questions if you'd like, all right?
Let's see, Mr. Wagerspack.
Can you repeat that phone number? 450-1200.
Yes.
Look, in Ascension Parish, always default to 450-1200.
Yes.
If you're looking for anything and you don't know the number, you call that number, and the ladies at the call center will put you in touch with whoever it is you're looking for.
Yes.
So my question may be for you, Jerome, it may be for administration also. I got a phone call today. How are we helping or assisting people look into grants for these types of things? Is it?
We're not quite at that stage yet, Councilman Wagasback. We're still making the determinations right now, but we'll have to go to the grant department and get an answer from that, all right?
Let's see. All right. Hang on for Mr. President to speak. I got to skip over Ms. Casso. Go to the president. And Ms. Casso, will you hit your button again?
I will be happy to.
All right. Mr. President, would you like to answer?
In addition to the item on the agenda, which will be a brief recap of those programs, we also plan to reach out to all the people on our list to ensure we call them and reach out to them to have a conversation. Obviously, we're going to accept the ones that come to us first. We're going to start processing those, see if they qualify. But then we're going to make sure that we call every resident. At the time that I had today, we had 150 homes as of today. So we're at 150. So we'll be reaching out to every single to make sure we have made contact with each and every one of those families to ensure they know of every possible grant they can qualify for.
So just a quick follow-up to that. You said we'll be contacting some of those, but if they would like to call in, who should they call? Just 450-1200 and then we'll contact them?
Hang on, hit your button.
So yeah, we'll initially direct them straight to the grants department and start processing these. This presentation today will give the people out there who have flooded twice, it has to be a chronic flooding structure, the ability to start that process. So they'll get some of that information today, more detailed information from the follow-up from that. So our grants department will work with each and every family that calls in, and then eventually, if they don't call in, we will then begin to reach out to each one of them to make sure that we try to capture every single home.
All right, Ms. Casso, you can have your turn now.
After we all figure out how to use these things. I think we'll have to lean over too. I wanted to mention, I just heard from the assessor, who I believe had already spoken to the parish president, who has reached out to various entities, taxing authorities, and he assured me that his office is going to communicate shortly in a press release that there will not be any property taxes assessed on the homes of those who flooded. So it's important that you call in and let this office know that you flooded, because that's how they're going to coordinate to make sure that you are not receiving a property tax bill at the end of this year.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to also add that any information that you provide us, a property owner wants to call in, give their address of the property that's been flooded, that's going to remain confidential. We don't disclose that information, and that's a FEMA regulation, and it's also something the parish administration wants to adhere to very strongly, right?
Yeah, just for, I'm sorry, I cut you off, Ms. Terry. Were you still?
No.
Oh, no, you're not.
Thank you. It just popped back on.
Just for the public's knowledge, whenever you do apply for the grant and the council approves that, it is anonymous. It's not public record that someone knows you're getting X amount of dollars to raise or elevate your house. That does remain anonymous. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us, because it's very important for us that we make sure we're getting all the federal dollars that we can. So just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Okay, one last time, 450-1200.
450-1200.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to item 7B, federal requirements and guidelines for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program funded through the Federal Emergency Management Agency for elevations for severe repetitive loss properties. Yes, I believe we got Ms. Irvin coming up. How are you?
Okay, I'm just gonna give the basic requirement for the federal and parish requirement for people to qualify to the grant program that we have under the HMG grant program.
Can you speak into the mic a little bit better, Ms. Irvin? They're supposed to be loud, but just get as close as you can.
As I said, I'm gonna give a presentation to make the public aware of the requirement, federal
that in turn runs in front of my house. Down Bluff Road from my house where the highway had to be closed, that water doesn't stop there. It continues to back up under I-10 all the way to Airline Highway. By diminishing the capacity of the swamp to hold more water, it also diminishes the capacity for these subdivisions in these areas to drain stormwater as well. So it's not just a local small area. This is broader than that. It concerns a bunch of citizens that are in our parish. Permanent pumping stations are needed for both Bluff Swamp and Spanish Lake basins in order to protect the citizens of Ascension and Iberville parishes when Manchac levels won't allow for the usage of the existing out-of-date lock system. I'm sure the board will ensure downstream communities are not adversely affected and that the Manchac fall rate will not be overcome by adding these pumps. Our parishes must establish modeling for permanent pumping options for water levels in Bluff Swamp and Spanish Lake to be drawn down before major rain events happen. Both parishes each need a pump system in order to be effective. If this is not done, our current situation will continue to happen over and over again. In conclusion, I am asking this board to pass a resolution at the next drainage meeting to task the parish administration with finding a viable solution regarding this statement. I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Terrence. Mr. Mike Gonzalez.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I live in the Bluff Swamp area. What I'm gonna say is kind of practical. We've got one way to get water out of our area. It's through Manchac. And when Manchac's high, we have no other options. So, even with the 7 pumps going, the 3 cuts in the road, gates open the last few days, we're dropping 2 inches a day. We got 5 feet to drop. So you're talking 5-6 weeks to get water out, which is what happened in 2016. So my main focus is all the things that are being presented tonight that you guys would take into consideration, because the one option is not working. And y'all heard about Manchac. We need some help there. That's not a short-term project. That's a long-term project that affects other parishes. So we got to do other things within our parish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. Let's see, Ms. Rachel Dunaway.
Good evening, I'm Rachel Dunaway, and I am with a group of residents from Ridge Road led by Blaine PT. I'm here to ask for a permanent pumping station at Alligator Bayou Road and to pass a resolution at the next meeting to task the parish administration with providing a financial plan for this project that is both viable and timely. There's been some data presented tonight about a pumping station that wouldn't solve all these problems, but it would be one piece. What we've heard tonight is that there was water before the May event. And if that water was lower or decreased, that maybe some people wouldn't have lost their houses. And that's what we're asking for. According to Congressman Garrett Graves, Louisiana secured $3 billion after the 2016 floods to address flood protection projects. So we want to understand where these funds have been allocated to, what projects, and what other sources are currently in place for this parish or that could be applied for in the future, like grants and federal funding. And that these funds be used to explore options that are presented here at tonight's meeting and those that have been discussed since the 2016 floods and before 2016. We are aware that several $1 million was to be moved from East Ascension drainage to the Move Ascension initiative, and that transfer was fortunately canceled. If those funds were deemed dispensable or, quote, extra, we ask those funds at minimum be directly tied to a permanent and sufficient pumping station at Alligator Bayou Road. The residents of Bluff Road and Ridge Road have pushed the local government for drainage solutions for decades, over 30 years. I've only been there since 2017. But we're here now, and we're asking for your help again. We understand that this is a region-wide issue and that coordination with other parishes is essential. But to push our projects through, And that is why we need you to carry our message to the neighboring parishes, to ask them to reevaluate their current and future projects which have affected and will affect residents downstream, and take into consideration the impact their projects have on wetlands and drainage in our area. We are no less important than they. But if the reason the adverse impact on our parish is because we haven't spoken up loudly or often enough, we are here now, and I hope our message is loud and clear. We need a plan of action, we need project milestones, we need a light at the end of the tunnel. And what I'm hearing tonight is that there's data and some plans, but why is it taking so long? And so just a point for this board is that it would be helpful if there was an explanation, maybe not tonight, but in the future, of a general overview of what it takes to approve and implement a project. Because what we're hearing is it's gonna take a year, it's gonna take a few years. We're talking decades, and we need more time, and we need more information, and we need your help. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being the voices for our community.
Thank you. Ms. Christy Hames.
So I know we have a problem. Everybody knows we have a problem. So we have to start finding solutions other than the man shack. The man shack is always high, and we can't get our water off of us. So I would like to touch on something Blaine said earlier. What about the option of going through the state-owned property of the prisons? Put a permanent pumping station there. That will help Ascension as well as Iberville. There will be a lack of servitude cost, a lack of buyout cost, because that is already state-owned property. I would also like to say, what about using the Bayou Paul or Bayou Bro to drain? These are options as well. I feel sure Iberville would be in full cooperation to assist in these aspects because they are having the same issues. I understand this is not an overnight thing. It's not going to be done by next week. It's not going to be done by next year. But it is an option to move forward with to give us another outlet to remove the water from the Spanish Lake Basin. So I'm asking the council tonight to work with our government to come up with a resolution for the next council meeting on things that can be done to improve the water situation in the Spanish Lake Basin. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Miss Roxanne Berto.
I want to talk to y'all about how flooding problems not only involve material items, but they also involve people's well-beings. I personally battle myself with depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress. It's not a pretty picture, but what really tears my heart apart is seeing people that I've known so strong my entire life. Family, friends, strangers that I run into that I've never even met before, from Ascension, EBR, that are now battling these illnesses. It's devastating. It's nightmares of drowning, constant fear when it rains, losing interest in things and people that you love the most, seclusion. It's not just material items that all of this is affecting. When your safe haven, your home is in jeopardy, the feeling of unknown takes over your entire body, and then in turn it affects you physically. Chronic pain, headaches, backaches. That's just a few things to even mention. But when the material things are in jeopardy, it takes away also your pride of what you want to pass on. If that's the only thing is to pass on to your children, it's almost like, say, the stock market crashes, you know, sometimes that's all that people have to pass on. And so then that pride is gone. And that safe haven, it's not safe when it's always a worry of wondering what lies behind the trees of your backyard or your fear of rain. It's just, and it's constant, like post-traumatic stress, PTSD. You relive those feelings over and over, just as if you did, say, 2016, if you've never felt that before. Every morning you wake up, and that's the first thing you think of. It's unhealthy emotionally as well as health-wise, and it's affecting so many people now. And I just want to thank you for your time and take everything into consideration tonight that everyone has brought up, so forth, and from behind me. I appreciate y'all's time very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Billy Musterman.
Hello. I live off of Bluff Swamp. The land that I live on has been in my family since the 50s. It was always a dream of mine to move to Ascension Parish and build a home here and have my children here. And we did so in 2008. Never would I think my neighborhood would flood the way that it did. When I moved there, there was a line on a barn that was about a foot high that my grandfather said, this is how high the water gets. That was in the 1980s. I have 3 feet of water sitting outside of my house right now. We have to use waders to get in and out of my house to my car to go to work. This has gotten beyond ridiculous. We need a way to get this water moving and get it drained. We cannot live like this. We cannot. I have children that cannot go outside. Before we had this main flood rain event, we had a 7-foot alligator killed outside of our house as a nuisance by Wildlife and Fisheries. So now I have a husband that's coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning, in the dark, in waders, in water, that I have to worry about, is he gonna make it? It's very frustrating. It's very frustrating, and we can do better. We absolutely can do better. And I just want to put my support with the rest of the people that are here, and let's just do better.
Thank you. Ms. Joy Fonseca.
My neighbor, Dave F., and Debbie F., and Billy M., we're all in the same situation. And you know, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting something different. It feels to me, and I've been around Ascension Parish all of my life, feels to me like we're doing the same thing over and over and expecting to get something different. We live in a bowl. That water's got to get pumped out, depending on rivers to get lower so that the water can naturally drain. We're not there anymore. When all of this land was farmland and water could be absorbed into the land before it got to Spanish Lake and the swamp and the rivers, then it was sufficient. But now that we've got all this cement in this parish that is keeping the water from being absorbed and pushing it to Bluff Swamp and everywhere else it's going, we need to pump it out. And I know y'all have said pumping it into the Mississippi is not an option. Well, keep doing the little pieces that you're doing right now, but get started working on getting that water into the Mississippi River. My opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Henry Shakesnyder.
afternoon. My name is Henry Shakespeare IV. I live at 36124 Shadowwood Lane. On May the 17th, myself and my family moved out of our house. And for the last 21 days, the only way we can go back is by boat or wading through waist-deep water. So I want to express my support with everybody else that's come up here and talked for the last 10, 15 minutes. And also, while I'm sitting back here hearing a lot about Bayou Manchac, I came across an article from 2017 where John Bell Edwards signed into law a bill that allows the clearing and dredging for scenic rivers, including several in St. Tammany Parish, to improve drainage. Edwards said this week that Senator Mac Bodie White, which amends the Louisiana Scenic Rivers Act and allows local, state, and federal to do work on West Pearl, the Chafuncta, Bayou something, Abita Rivers, and St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, the Comite, Amite Rivers, and Bayou Manchac. Thank you for your time.
Not familiar with that. Thank you, Ms. Shakespeare. Okay. Mr. James Preston.
Good evening, everybody. Just to start out, 2016, I flooded, was a big mess. It's always a struggle when it rains hard. Back in April, when the water started coming back in my backyard again, this was the middle of April, I started questioning a little bit. My problem has been, I'm not getting any phone calls back from anybody in this parish, nor emails, nor even a work order that I put in. No one called me back. So my question is, why are we flooding the basin back in April and leaving the lock system open to allow this water to flow in and not managing it so that it's below the 7-foot level? The gentleman had the display earlier and was talking about the 13 inches of rain that we had back on the 17th of May, that it gave a 2-foot lift on the basin. If we had been managing it and it was down below the 7-foot level, probably 90% of these people in this room would not have been flooded. Now, everyone's calling themselves lucky when they flooded. I call myself lucky because I didn't flood. And I feel guilty sometimes even driving by some of these people that live in my neighborhood, and I see what they go through. I still have to, right now, wear hip waders to get into my house. I should not have to do that. I pay a lot in taxes every year, and we don't get any movement on anything. So I'm here to tell you, I support all of these items that everyone are bringing up. But I also support management of the basin. We need to keep the water down where it should be. If this needs to be a pump station, and then there needs to be a pump station at the end of Bayou Manchac, that was the natural waterway back before the levee on the Mississippi River was ever built. That's how the water got out. So if that's the way the water needs to go, maybe we need to look at that and put it on the books for future. And put out the capital outlays that whatever, 4 to 8 years down the road, we need to look at that to figure it out. So, the biggest thing for me seems to be that you have all this money that's available, have all these possibilities, but nothing's moving. Everything's sitting still. I'm in the construction building for commercial real estate, large developments and things like that for grocery. I develop a lot of things. If I didn't manage my projects and I didn't manage my capital budget correctly, I would lose my job. All these people in this room pay a lot of money in taxes for you all to manage all this. Don't let us down. I suggest we figure it out and we try to get how the water can be managed at a level in the
Thank you. Ms. Teresa Robert.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. I have to say I am so impressed by the people that have come out here tonight. I've been out in this parish for 43 years, and we've got lots of problems here. And this has happened to Bluff Road. I brought my out-of-state aunt through your area a few weeks ago, and she, from Colorado, couldn't believe it. She said, I see these things on TV. I've never seen it in person. But I think the thing that I'd like to say to all of you is I would really encourage our council and our parish president, who I've known since he was a child. I thank him. He's an excellent parish president. He grew up in a home that flooded. This is Bluff Road and Ridge Road. We've seen Manchac. We've seen Sanama. We've seen Dutchtown, Mr. Marty, and them. This is going on all over our parish. I'm just really hopeful that we will stand together and we will get behind our parish president, and our parish councilman will stop the foolishness and the silliness that goes on and work together. Y'all's first and foremost duty is the health and safety and welfare of the people of Ascension Parish. And I know all of your hearts are there. But please stand together, work together, encourage public participation. Let's stand up as a community and let's make a difference. Let's restore the quality of life for our parish. Let's move on this moratorium next week. Let's stop all this overbuilding everywhere. Let's get our drainage in place. Let's get our roads fixed. And let's stand together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Teresa. All right, so that is everyone who, I'm double checking, did anyone want to speak that we missed? Okay, so, okay. I'm gonna run through the names of residents who favor action on the Bluff Road. They fill out a green card, but they wish not to speak at the podium. Mr. Tommy, starts with a B. Your handwriting's worse than mine, Mr. Tommy. Let's see, we got Mr. David Bro, Miss Linda Bro, Mr. Jim Brown, Mr. Mike Brown, Miss Carrie Brown, Miss Judy Lassard, Mr. David Berg, Nicholas Grove, Blake Moran, Miss Stephanie Clean, Mr. Bruce Rogers, Miss Whitney Miller, Mr. Blaine Berto, Mr. Jason Richardson, Joel Tanner. Is that a Joel? No, okay. Jody. Let's see, Shannon Lassard, Angela Griffin, Steve Griffin, Bertel Cook, Richard and Johnny Morneau. Yeah, I don't even know what any of these letters are. I mean, not a one.
12425
Yeah.
Geismer.
Devin Blair, Pam LeBlanc, Patricia Cook, Tootie, Travis Dewey. That is everyone who filled out a card. Yes, sir. Sure, absolutely.
Appreciate the time. My name is Shelby Ballard. I live in Dutchtown Meadows subdivision. I live right on Bayou Godin. Okay. Just recently with the amount of flooding we had, I had probably a foot of freeboard in the bayou itself. So my concern is downstream of where we're all at, being able to move the water from there so this water up here can move. And everyone, from what I've had, is the same concerns. I had the opportunity today to speak with a young lady from Garrett Graves' office. She passed on to me that today that their office has developed a sheet that is going to be able to use by people in the parish. Can get it, I'll have to get the information off the website when I get home because she didn't get to me till 5:30 this afternoon. This paper would allow people to designate or to identify areas that are congested that could be used to be cleaned out, basically. And present it to their office, and there's federal money there for those people, for those projects to be taken care of. And I will tomorrow contact someone with DPW in the Drainage Division and pass that information on to them, because it's a new form. It's a new project that they've started. So I just found out at 5:36. So I will be doing that, and any attention that can be used from that information, I can be contacted. DPW has my number.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Let's see. I'm gonna move on to Ms. Casso.
Thank you, Chase. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to say that I appreciate everyone who came from the Bluff and Ridge Road community. You've added your voices to mine and those of the parish president, and certainly to those of members of this commission who, over this last event, because your flooding situation was more unique this time. In 2016, everybody's districts were flooded. Nobody really had much time to pay much attention to anything but their own district. But on this occasion, because the Bluff Swamp and the Bluff Road community, Ridge Road community, have been more isolated in this flood, Mr. Lawler, Mr. Melanson, Mr. Wagasback, Mr. Cagnalotti, others came and saw and were able to, with their own eyes, understand what happens to you. And so I really appreciate you being here. I do think that we need to talk about the operations plan for the locks at Frog Bayou, and then what that operations plan will be for Fish Bayou. And that is something that Mr. Savoy and I'm sure the parish president has been engaged in those conversations as well, how to find a way to get the Corps who sets that gate plan to modify that plan so that we can evacuate the basin more in the way that we need to, as opposed to according to the plan. It's complicated to not follow a plan put in place by the Corps of Engineers, because you jeopardize, when you do that, your funding for future projects and permits for future projects. And so, you want to comply, but I do think that there should be significant enough data now, after 2 floods, and certainly this one being more isolated to that region, for the Corps to understand that this area needs some special attention, and that whatever we've been doing back there is not working. So I thank you. Members of the administration certainly know that we've been in constant contact, and I thank you for all the help you've been to us over the last several weeks. There has been significant resources provided, however, does not make it any better when people are struggling with water in their homes and trying to access their homes through water. So once again, I'd like to thank the members of the commission who have been helpful. No one up here, I don't think we've ever done a project for Bluff Swamp, ever considered anything in the Bluff Swamp, that it wasn't a unanimous decision. But I certainly think that going forward, it will absolutely be unanimous, and that there will be a passion for it after having heard from real people what it feels like to live in this situation and under this threat. So I thank you again, and certainly appreciate the folks being here.
Mr. Lawler.
Thank you. I've got a lot here. I hate to tell y'all, but first of all, I'd like to ask our legal counsel to follow up on the bill signed by John Bell Edwards that will allow dredging and snagging of Bayou Manchac. That is one of the first and foremost things that has to be done. As y'all heard during the HNTB presentation, if the water can't get out, it's just going to back up into there. What we also need to do, even beyond that, is we need to look at the amite and the diversion we got to clear those out also. Those are very important, so hopefully we'll get started on that. I do have a lot of questions, because I've asked questions on this early on. Anybody here, if anybody here works in an industry or in a plant, it's a thing called a root cause analysis. You got to figure out what went wrong, what could have been done to fix it, so we don't have that again. I've asked questions on this. I'm still trying to get some answers. So I just have a couple basic ones. How big was the cut that we made?
If I can go through all of my stuff, maybe then I can take questions from all the council instead of doing individual. Can I cover all this?
Well, I'll read my questions, then because I've sent these weeks ago, and I didn't get answers to a lot of this. So I'll read my questions, and then if they're not answered, I'll come back to them. I'd like to know how big the cut was, because that's really significant. There have been recommendations. If they're big enough, the water gets out of there. If it's not big enough, it really doesn't do anything. How long did we need to pump? What was the cost per pump, including the fuel? Can we get this reimbursed by the federal state government? I think since we have an emergency declaration, we may be able to. Remember, that's important, because if you get reimbursement, that means that's money that we can put towards a permanent solution. So I think that's very important that we look at that. Before we cut the road, I was asking if cutting the road was an option, and how long, what are the requirements for cutting the road? At what water levels? I was curious, when do we cut it? Because I think we could have cut it and gotten some water out maybe a little bit sooner. I'd like to know who we consulted regarding the Bluffs situation and the 74 canal idea. I've got a lot of questions about 74, so I'll let the president talk about some of those. I guess I'll wait for him to answer or to say some of his stuff that he's going to say, because I have a lot more questions, so I'll go back again. But one thing that I would like to do now is I'm going to offer, when we get to a point, I'm going to offer a resolution requesting that first of all, a lot of what you asked for resolution-wise, you don't need a resolution for that. It should be done. It doesn't require a resolution to ask the administration to act. It should be done. We can make resolutions, but they're non-binding. I'm going to request, and this is important, you understand why, that the parish president, a resolution requesting that the parish president request that the drainage master plan be completed in 18 months from the original signing of the contract. I heard Mr. John from HNTB say 18 months. That was the original plan, to have that contract done, a master drainage plan done in 18 months. The president wanted to extend it to 24 months. I don't know why, because that delays these kind of projects that y'all need by 6 months. So I'm going to make a motion or offer a resolution that we can vote on, requesting that the parish president to request with our contractor that the drainage master plan be completed in 18 months from the original signing of the contract. So we'll have to see if we can do that. But I'll wait and I'll ask some questions after.
I'm on here?
Yeah. All right, Mr. President, you up.
It's not a drainage master plan, it's a floodplain management plan. The two are separate and different. You need to understand the difference. It's not a drainage master plan, it's a floodplain management plan. It needs to be explained, the difference. I did ask for the 18 months from HNTB. I'm the one that asked for it, so you don't have to pass a resolution for that. All right, now we can move on. So when we listened to the residents, I was taking notes as we were discussing. I did want to tell everybody who doesn't have Facebook, the cut was reopened this afternoon. So but we don't have the head pressure that we need, but it is flowing out. So as Manchac continues to drop, hopefully the head pressure will continue to push out. That was open this evening, and our Ms. Cazzo knows, and I contacted her when we were able to do that. So that is open as we speak. Yes, that cut is approximately about 25 feet wide. It is equivalent to the two 12 by 12 culverts that would be put in that place. So essentially, that lock system will be very close to a cut in the road. And so that should do some additional benefit in getting volume out. But again, Mother Nature controls where Manchac is, and we have no control over Mother Nature. That's why it's important that I believe that the ideas from Mr. PT and the audience on other solutions are critical to that. And I'll go over each of those as we go. Let's talk about man shack clearing snagging. So there was the article from NOLA.com, and that was sent to me by several individuals. I contacted our state senator, Eddie Lambert, Tony Bacala. They are looking into that, but even with that requires permits through state agencies. So you can't just go in there and clean and snag. You'll get violated, and we'll end up being in a bad situation with the Corps and the governor, and we don't want to be that, because what we need in that situation is that's a true regional project. That is a true project that EBR, Iberville, and Ascension need to stand behind and get done and be funded through the Louisiana Watershed Initiative, because that's what the governor wants, regional projects. There's no better project than that, except I don't want clearing and snagging. I want channelization, because these three parishes have grown leaps and bounds and no longer can take the water. It's not pastures anymore. It's subdivisions after subdivisions after subdivisions that rush water, to engineer to rush water to the man shack, and it simply cannot handle it anymore. And just this last rain event, we lost a foot. That's the capacity we lost in man shack. Now we have to start over again, and we have to wait till that head pressure comes down, and it adds days. It doesn't add hours, it adds days for us to get back to where we need to be, where we were just a couple days ago. And so that has to be a major project. It has to come out of the governor's office. Yes, I can get our crews in there, okay, and we can take care of the ones on the surface, the ones that are just falling. We can cut them, drag them to the bank to increase flow. I can't do it right now because the safety conditions are not met. I can't put my people in harm's way. If they fall out of a boat and slip in and get caught in a log, they drown, and that's on me, and I cannot let that happen. So we're doing everything we can. We're making sure that the federal requirement is not there. I have some people looking into that. Will hopefully get me that answer tomorrow. So that's with the man shack clearing. And so let's discuss pumping stations. What I was told, and I don't know because, again, this is regional stuff, this is Corps of Engineers stuff, that it would take $1 billion pumping station to pump man shack out into the Mississippi River, $1 billion. And it didn't reach the BCA, base cost analysis. Now, that's what I was told. I don't know if that's correct. I don't know what didn't pass at the time of the BCA or whether a BCA would be passed right now. I don't know that. That's a huge project that's out of my knowledge of what I know about drainage, and I'll admit that. It's true. So we do have to look at it to see if it's liable. Now, you put a pumping station in the Spanish Lake Basin, now you're in an enclosed system. It's different. Now you can do pretty much accurate calculations to what that pumping station can put it, because it is in the basin, it's in a bowl. And when it's not connected to bluff sump, and when it is, you can run those analyses, and it can tell you what. You can go down Bayou Paul or Bayou Bro, and you can look at the different points close to the Mississippi River, and that's an option. I gotta contact Iberville for that. Ascension can't go put no pumping station in Iberville. It's going to require that joint conversation. And I've already talked to Big Mitch, and we've been going over several things like that. And he doesn't like being called Parish President Uso. He likes to be called Big Mitch. So we've had these conversations, and they've been good. But man shack and how we handle man shack is a regional situation, because Ascension Parish can't make enough effect there for all three parishes, because all three are dumping so much water into there that it has to be a regional approach. So pumping stations on the Bluff Swamp area. So talking to many of y'all, you have some great ideas. So there's two parts to that: a permanent pumping station, and then what do we do in the meantime? Well, I can tell you, me and Ron have had discussions every day, including with Jay Robinson, about what is the most efficient, cost-effective way. And what we've discovered is it's not these big old pump contracts that you spend $1 million for in 2016 or the $330,000 we're up to today, but 10 tractor pumps, brand new, at $30,000 a piece. We buy 10 of them, which is $300,000. We have them set up. We have a tractor fleet, but also we look at purchasing used tractors at auction. We got a tractor sitting on Sorrento's levee that has flat tires. it's just used for pumping. And they need it because that's sometimes the only thing that gets water outside the levee. So we could put that as a temporary solution until a permanent station is put in place. As far as a permanent station goes, I said, well, how do we pay for it? So I started to look into it. We got $27 million in the budget right now, 19 that's available. 19 million has to go to the Marvin Bro levee system to make sure we get the $55 million for the levee improvements. So at least $7 or $8 million there in the drainage fund. We could use that as match money if we go ahead and prove that 2013, 2016, 2021 justifies the situation for a permanent pumping station. Because I agree with everyone here, we're pumping at the wrong time. We're pumping at elevations 11 and 10, and when Man Shack's at 12 and 13, we should be pumping at anything over elevation 7, because the bluff, swamp, and space are separated, and you're going to get more drawdown in that swamp area at that critical point. I think at elevation 6, you can start using the lock systems, because that 12 by 12 is like a cut in the road. Once it drops, we should be good there. So I think you could budget fuel cost and everything else, not to mention, if this board wants to dedicate that money as match money, I think we can go to FEMA or other grant sources, and I think we got this a $20 to $24 million station funded, in my opinion. So that's an option for this board to consider, and that money's available to do that. I would also like to see elevations done around every road, including Ridge Road, including the berm, including the levee system, so that we know exactly when the basin and the swamp connect. We assume, because I'm going off people that lived there forever, and they're walking in their knee boots over the berm, and they say, yep, I got a foot of water. Well, so I'm trying to calculate what that means in gauges in the basin and the swamp. Let's go survey it. Let's know exactly when it happens. Is it 7.8 or is it 8.5? Let's know exactly when that's separate. If we want to raise it to 9, say, well, let's work with Iberville first, because we're going to need some help on the basin side. Let's not just say we're going to do it till 11 and flood their people. Let's make sure that we're working closely with Iberville to ensure that we come common ground, so when we support their pumping station and them spending money from their parish, that knowing that we're just not pushing water onto them. I think that's a very important component in those discussions. So, elevation 7. So I've looked at the gauges since we've had the Bluff Swamp gauges, and that's the trigger point for me. And I tell the residents, look, if I could go back in time and start something, I would have. I can't. I cannot. I don't have a time machine. I can't. But what we can do today is look at viable solutions that will benefit the Bluff Road area, not the Bluff Swamp. The Bluff Road area. That's all those subdivisions along Highway 74 that all drain into that basin, that have elevated detention ponds and retention ponds, because there's no capacity in the basin. And they're all elevated right now. The people in Moss Point or Twin Oaks that have water in it has no place to go. So they're at risk as much as the people on Ridge Road. The northern end, where it crosses Bluff Road, that's been closed for weeks on end, that goes across I-10, that goes across Airline Highway, and it goes across Highway 73, all the way to Willow Lake and southern Prairieville. Every part of Prairieville that does not drain into Cotton Bayou, Welsh Gully, or Muddy Creek drains into the Bluff Swamp. That's what you're talking about, thousands of homes that are outside or on the east side of Bluff Road that use this basin for retention. And they're at risk as much as anybody when this basin is full. And so it's much bigger than just Ridge Road. It's way bigger than Ridge Road. And so it has to be looked at that way. It has to be modeled that way. It has to be considered that way, because that's where you get your BCA. That's where you get your cost analysis, because it ain't just the 50 homes on Ridge Road. It's thousands of homes that benefit from this basin. And that's why these solutions are so important. So let's move to diverting water and why Highway 74 project and what phases it takes and what it is. So it's about 350 to 400 feet between the two basins on a ridge. Okay? That's what separates them. Now, the other levee is Highway 74. Okay? And it has about a 30-inch culvert. It's underwater, so I couldn't measure it. but it's about roughly that size. So it doesn't produce any volume. The way the Morgan Swamp on the south side of 74 filled up is the water came across the road. And that's why you saw the road closures and everything else. So it wants to go there until it hits the ridge. The only time that you would release this water is when New River's at drought-like conditions. It would not affect those residents at all because we can pull it down with the Marvin Bro to drought-like conditions. Normally, it's not like that. Normally, it's just we open the gates and it goes to the natural flow of whatever on the outside of Marvin Bro. But we can manipulate that, unlike Manchac. We cannot. We have not. But why shouldn't all these people benefit from a $250 million pumping station and the rest of the parish does? Why can't they? During special circumstances, they should. They should be able to benefit. Every Ascension Parish resident should be able to benefit from that $250 million pumping station. And all you have to do is connect it and put a gate valves to where we can regulate it. And we're not causing flooding on anybody else. And it's not difficult to do. It's not hard to do. The water on 74 was 11.7 when I got Earls and Associates to shoot the elevations. It was at 7.4 in New River. 7.4 and 11.7. I'll let y'all do your math real quick. So we can take off the couple top feet at just 8.5 on coming through there, that critical point that they need, that's critical to getting water in their homes. I ain't asking to drain the entire basin in the New River. I'm not asking that. I'm take the top 2 foot off, or the top 2.5 foot. But when rain is on the radar, or it's coming, and we know like Sunday, flash flood, we all knew it was coming, we'll close it off a couple days prior. Make sure those drought-like conditions are existing in Marvin Bro for all the residents who use it. This is not difficult, but I need your help to do it, and I need your authority to do it. And it's going to work. And we're going to model it after this declaration of emergency, and after I can do everything I can for every one of these residents, we're going to model it, research and engineer it. We're going to do everything that we possibly can. It's going to take a whole bunch of time, but at least it's there, and it's a project that's available to these residents to help them. Because we can go out and we can sandbag your house, and we can go bring you beers and cookies like it was on Facebook. We can do all that, but does that really help you? Is that what you want? No, you want real solutions that keep water out of their homes, and this is what this is. This is a real solution, and those gate valves that y'all support is a real solution, and I'm going to get started on that immediately, and they are going to help not only these residents, but also every other resident that resides on Goodine, the 3 branches, all the way to South Prairieville, all the way into Dutchtown, all the way into Geismar, and all along New River. It will benefit every single one of them, and after those are done, we need to look at the weir at Piccadilly, and we need to find a solution there. And that needs to be our next step, because that was an original FODET plan. Nobody ever did it. It was in the original 1983 plan. You can see them. I can show you. I've showed many of you. But we've never done it. Why not? Let's do it today. Let's start today. Let's not, look, we can't go back and fix what we did do, but we can start tomorrow on what we should have done. And that's all I'm asking, because these are viable things based on real solutions. The second phase of the Highway 74 is to put box culverts with DOTD. They're going to require some engineering, and it's going to require a lot of different things that has to be done in order to get that permit. And everything we've done, and I say this because this is important, and I'm afraid to really. The Corps of Engineers has been phenomenal since this declaration. They have really come through for Ascension Parish. And I know they get the rap. And look, I've given them a tough time in the past. I'm going to tell you, they came through for us. And then that was big, because we don't want to get sideways with them. We just don't. And that was huge. So I have my staff writing them thank you letters, because they deserve them, because they came through for us in a big way. So, let's see, what am I missing? We need HNTB to look at the Bluff Swamp area for base elevations. That is a Zone A. That means it's determined, and it's determined in-house. And there's irregularities from Highway 74 to Alligator Bayou. We need to set those elevations. So that's 0025 firm, and they're Zone A. We need to know what those elevations are. I mean, I would say 12, which is +2 at 14. We cannot have structures below that. And look, the ones that will be grandfathered in will be grandfathered in. But the roads, once we run it, are at 14. So why are we building below the bowl lip? We shouldn't be. We shouldn't allow anybody to. because they're flooding. And they did everything right. They permitted themselves on what it was at the time, but we're in different times now. Our weather pattern has changed. We have gotten record levels of rain this year. Last year, we had a record number of storms. We can no longer think like we've been acting and thinking in the past. We just no longer can do that because it has changed. And we're getting 25-year storms every couple weeks. I mean, it's just massive. Who would have thought that Sunday would have been? Marvin Bro, I had pumped down because the water levels outside of Marvin Bro were too high to open the gates. I had it at 0.5. That's never done. We always just keep it regular at 1.2 to 2. It was at 0.5. The entire New River Francois was at 0.5. I had that much capacity. I had water at the walkway at City Hall touching the bottom. That's how much rain came down in such a short period of time. This is not normal. But this is what we have to start responding to because it is not normal, but it's happening every other week. And so we have to adjust to that. And it's not one solution. It's many. It's many. And yes, we do have to study stuff, and it's aggravating. I know. It's aggravating to me, and it's aggravating to everybody. But we got to make sure there's a project at the end of that benefits somebody, and we execute it. We have to have a clear and defined plan, and I think there's some things in places, but I think some real tangible projects have been introduced here today by these residents that are doable and are cost-effective to do. They have not asked for anything that is not cost-effective. The cut by Moss Point and Twin Oaks, there's some elevation issues that will require special engineering because there's a high ridge on the southern side. But it does not mean it can't be done. But again, it has to be gate valved off because we can't take water into a system unless the conditions are met to take it. But it is a doable project. But the 74 thing is a no-brainer. It's 350 to 400 feet. And all you got to do is shut it off. When the conditions are not there, shut it off. It's no different than the cut. And that's an important correlation. So what's the difference from making a cut in Alligator Bayou Road and telling the people on Cotton Bayou, Welsh Gully, and Muddy Creek that, oh, we're not increasing levels on you? Because you know we are. What's the difference? What's the difference between that and 74? Absolutely zero. None. So we have to start thinking out of the box. We have to start looking at what's available to get water out of these people who have been money-wise overlooked. We have a $250 million pumping station in Marvin Bro. About to spend $55 million on levee upgrades, $26 million on a Laurel Ridge levee extension, $26 million on a Sorrento surge protection, $5 to $6 million in New River that they don't benefit from with the gate valves, and countless other projects and stuff we do all the time. It's about time that they get their share. And I know y'all support that, and you're not against. You're not saying no. I see you saying yes. It's time. So let's do it. Let's start today. Let's start tonight, and let's do that together. And that's what I propose. That's my comments. Thank you.
I'm gonna take a minute real quick. I just want to comment on the 74 to New River. I agree with Mr. Morton from earlier. I definitely don't want to put any more water in that New River basin whenever it's out of the banks. But I remember Mr. Wagsback and I. So I forget what day it was. May the 18th, the Saturday. Spent the day out on Ridge Road looking at those issues. And that Monday, whatever the Monday was after, for those who don't know, I've said it a million times, I live on New River and Santa Mar. When you walk out my back door, you go a couple hundred feet, and that's my property line, is the riverbanks of New River. And that Monday or Tuesday, while there was still water, like in Mr. Ian's home, New River, since I've owned that property since 2014, was the lowest I had ever seen it. Got in my truck, rode down 74, and water was over the road on 74. Like at that point, we need to release that water into New River. We had to turn off Marvin Bro pump station. We didn't have enough level to keep the pumps running, and Highway 74 and Bluff Road were closed. So, yeah, and look, and I'm very honest when it comes to what I don't know. And up until that weekend of May 17th, 18th, when I spent the day out on Ridge Road, complete ignorance to that entire area and that issue and what y'all face right there. In Santa Maria, it's easy. We're low. We got New River and Black Bayou. The water comes out the banks, goes out the pump station, it goes back in. That's how we operate. Bluff Road and Ridge Road is not that. That is just a complicated situation. And I can tell you, I was humbled being out there, watching everybody, in good spirits cook, and a lot of water was in your home. So, no, I'm on board. I absolutely want to help y'all, and I believe we all do. So, look, and the second thing I do want to tell you, I had to go back and find this today. I want, if you go back on our YouTube channel, AP Channel 21, December 10th, 2018, HNTB did several, it was about an hour and a half long presentation. If you zoom forward to the 30-minute mark of that meeting, HNTB, they're sharing their cost-benefit analysis on multiple projects throughout the parish. And one of the main ones was getting Man Shack to the Mississippi River. And don't hold me to it, but the numbers off the top of my head, to dig Man Shack to the Mississippi River, the shortest span that we could take, was roughly like 7.2 miles. 2 million cubic feet of dirt would have to be out to get the bottom of Man Shack to -5 feet. And with a 3,000 SCFM pumping station, their costs, I think, was somewhere around $242 million is what that project would cost for 70 foot wide and to dig it out to that -5 foot. I want y'all, look, it'd take you about 10 minutes. If you get 10 minutes, go on YouTube and watch that 10 minutes that it's 3 or 4 projects that they offer for Man Shack. The $242 million was the cheapest one. And it only showed about a 4 or 5 inch drop in the surface water level. Like $242 million to drop that water level 4, 5, 6 inches. So we have a huge problem. We need a huge solution. But I would like for y'all to go and watch that video. And at that point, let's see, I'm gonna go on to Mr. Wagaspack.
Hey, how y'all doing? Appreciate hearing all the stories. I've been out there, got good friends out there. So certainly, it's never my intention to ignore anybody in this parish. Clint, you talked about a lot of elevations and things. I don't know what you're talking about. I do know what you're talking about. I got the general understanding of it. The one thing I would challenge you guys to do as a drainage board, I think we're here to help. I don't know where the sentiment comes that we're not here to help. Ryan, I talk to you a lot. I'm going to try to make informed decisions for everybody in this parish. You threw out some numbers just now. There's extra money. Tell me where it's at. Tell me where you guys need help. Ryan, if you need support, if you need employees, tell us. Put a plan in front of us. We want to help. All I ask for is details. Somebody said, I don't know who said it, an action plan with milestones. I think we've been asking for it. That's all I want to see. We got to make informed decisions, and we have to make that decision based on what we have from you guys. Some of it comes late. Some of it comes, I have a full-time job, so I try to do as much as I can to understand what I'm voting on. Some of these things come at us 2 or 3 days, and we haven't heard of them before. So more notice, comprehensive plan. I've talked to Ron. We use floodplain management. We use whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, but a drainage strategy, not just for big ticket items like levees around Sorrento, levees around Santa Monica. We all know those are there. They've been there. Those projects have been there. They just haven't been funded. What are the small internal projects? Not just for, somebody said something about concrete ditches in Silverstone. Tell us how much it is per linear feet. How many projects are we going to do in all those neighborhoods? Where do we get the most bang for our buck? Come with a plan to us. I want to hear it. I'm aching for it. I want to hear it. I want to help you guys. It's just information. And if you don't have the staff to do it, tell us you need more staff. Like you said, we have a huge drainage budget, and there's money you know, we ask for multi-year budgeting on all these capital projects. If, you know, I know some I understand some of it we have to put into the budget every year, but, you know, if we're gonna do a project next year and we have it in the budget this year, obviously, like Clint said, there's money extra. So where are the smaller projects that we can pull the trigger on immediately? And then the only other thing I would say about the folks, I've spent some time since these last 2 rain events going around the Goodine and my district and paying more attention to internally, right? We hear about big ticket items, but what are some small things that we can do to help people? And, you know, let's put some numbers to those small projects that maybe help a small group of people and put them up against the big projects, and multi-year budgeting where we don't need to just sit on money because it's not going to be used for a couple years, but we can use it this year to do 200,000 there, $1 million here. I mean, if we have it, come to us with that plan. We want to support you. So, you know, I'm ready to help everybody in this parish solve the flooding. Yes, is it all changing? It is changing. So, you know, let's understand it better. So that's all I have.
Mr. Lawler.
Yeah, that was good. I mean, it looks like we're going to have some help. I heard a lot of things that I really wanted to hear. Got a lot of answers that I wanted to get. I thank the president for 18 months. I mean, that's, you know, to get that was important. That's something that we really needed. I thank you for changing your mind on that and doing that for us. I need to have more information. I'm not against doing the 74 cut, but I'd like to know where it is. There's a neighborhood right there, Oak Alley Estates. I want to make sure it's not affecting them. I'm not saying I'm against it, but there's no way I'm going to say, hey, go forward with the project. And I don't think y'all would do this to those people either, unless we know it's not going to impact them. That's why you do the engineering and you do the study. We had some H&H modeling in 2016 that was done. I think you may be able to access some of that to help with that project, because it's something that would definitely be good. I know the concreting thing has come up. I heard the lady from Silverstone also. It's possibly a great idea, but what's happened in other areas, if you look at Lafayette, they did a lot of concreting. And if you live in Youngsville and Broussard, they're flooding now. I don't want to do that to somebody. Just like what y'all are talking about is, hey, all this water is coming at us. If we start concreting waterways without knowing the impact, we could flood another neighborhood, and nobody wants to do that. So that's why there's not a hesitancy, there's a reasonableness about, hey, let's look at things and understand what we're doing before we just jump into things. Because to me, drainage is not a no-brainer. Drainage is not that simple. It's not just trust me on things. I want to have actual engineering behind it to tell me that it's not only not going to hurt somebody, but that it's going to help the people that we're trying to help. Because that's really important to me, that we're not just throwing money around. Look, I have some questions about the cut. Can we do bigger than 25 feet? Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I guess the question is, can we do bigger than 25 feet? I know in the past, 25 feet was not enough. It's not enough this time. If we can do 100, we're going to get that water out of there, out of y'all's neighborhood. That's what needs to be done, is go to 100 feet. I'd like to know who you've consulted with regard to the Bluff situation and the 74 Canal idea. You know, which companies and who it is. Look, I know that, you know, the pumps, we didn't pump before. That's because they didn't work, right? It was, I mean, that's my understanding, is that, hey, we said that the three 30-inch pumps would not provide a significant benefit to your area. That's why they didn't pump ahead of time. You know, maybe we have to look at changing that up. Is that okay? Do we add more pumps to it? Because that was looked at. It was looked at in May 10th, 11th, and 12th to see whether or not pumping out Bayou Swamp, and the decision was that it would take 45.8 days to lower the water in your area by 1 foot, with 3 pumps going 12 hours a day. That may not have been the right decision to go pump, and I'm okay with that, but I don't know if it's the right decision to be pumping now. If it wasn't a benefit then, why is it benefiting now? I think we really have to look at getting authority to bust that levee open. I say that levee, but that road open even wider, because that's what's going to get your water out. Because you can't tell me that if it wasn't a benefit to pump out, to do preventative pumping before, that it's any benefit now. It just seems too political to me. So I think we really have to look at making a cut, making a bigger cut. We need to go to the Corps of Engineers and say, hey, this 25 foot isn't doing it. We want to do 100 feet to get the water out of there, and then we come back in, we fill in what we have to fill, and we put the locks in there. I think that's the way you do it. Now, can we do that right now? I don't believe we can. I think the water's too high. It won't get it out. But when the water gets low enough, let's ask for authority to do 100 feet, because that's going to get that water moving out of there, like in 2016 when it's going to drop tremendously. And the president's right. All along Old Jefferson, in my district, they've still got standing water in front of the neighborhoods. Now, fortunately, it's not in anybody's houses. It's just along the sides of the roads. We have had a few people flood, but nothing serious like y'all. So it does affect all of us. And I can tell you, my district's like y'all's. It's all gravity drained except for one small area that goes in Henderson Bayou and drains through that pumping station. Everything else is gravity drained. There's nothing there. There are no big projects for it. We need to get Bayou Manchac cleared out, dredged, widened, channelization, all of that. We got to do the same thing for the Amite and Diversion Canal. You know, everybody likes to go down to Maurepas and Lake Maurepas and stand on the sandbar. Well, you know what that does, though? When the Amite came down, it's my understanding that it hit that, and that's part of the backflow. We got to look at moving all that out of there and to really improve drainage as a whole. Finally, I like the thing that Councilman Wagisback said about looking at smaller projects. I would love to see, I guess, we look at neighborhoods as a whole. I'm not a big fan of the work order process, because all that does is I'm going to go dig out one ditch in front of somebody's house, and everybody on either side of it, if they didn't put in a work order, well, their ditches don't get dug, and you kind of create a basin in between there. I would like to see, and I know we're doing this near the Jefferson Crossing, Willow Lake area. We have some engineering. I want to get an update on that when we can, because we have a contractor out there looking at how to solve that whole area. That's what we need to start doing, neighborhood by neighborhood, yours included. I think we have some ideas. We need to do a cost-benefit analysis of the 74 thing and make sure it's not going to hurt anybody, and make sure it's worthwhile, that it's actually going to do what it says it's going to do, and it doesn't cost $2 million. I was there.
Look, hey.
Yeah,
Look, we're not gonna have the back and forth banner.
Well, you can sit down then, sir. It's not your turn.
Sir.
Well, okay, y'all know where I want to go. This is going on there. We see it every damn time it comes on. Fix something.
Well, that's not our job. We will put the money towards it. They need to come up with the ideas and fix it.
All right, that's enough. We have to have order in here so we don't have chaos, yelling, or profanity, sir.
Get something done. That's all we ask.
Okay.
Y'all keep blaming this past president. Most of y'all been on the board past presidents. What have y'all done? Y'all run on infrastructure and drainage. What have y'all done? Nothing. Not nothing. You know, and they all come out here and say, just give us another foot. Don't roll your eyes. Come on. Don't roll his eyes.
Okay, let's move on.
We
Yes, ma'am. We're aware of all the road closures and where that happened. Okay, I done lost track of where we were.
I'll just close by saying, look, Mr. President, we're more than willing to work with your ideas, but give us complete ideas and we'll do it. We'd love to have complete ideas. Give us a cost. I mean, we don't even know what 74 this plan is going to cost. We can't write a blank check, but we'd love to help, but we just need more information. That's all we need.
All right, Mr. Wagaspat, you still wish to speak?
I'll say something.
All right.
So yeah, when we talk about all these, so we're going to put in these new gates. I mean, I would ask that let's start publishing how we operate all these systems. Maybe not in every situation, but you know, you were talking about the pumping station. When we turn them on, when we don't, we go on Facebook and say the pumps are on. Let's talk about what kind of elevations in each of the tributaries and why we decide to turn the pumps on, how many we decide to turn on, why we do it. But with the gates, I mean, let's put procedures in place where we talk about if we do put this 74 project in place, let's publish those procedures. We'll open those gates when New River is at this stage and the Bluff Swamp is at this stage, if Bayou Manchac. And let's also talk about how much water we're going to be able to move. You know, if we're at 8 feet, we open those gates. When we expect to get these people in a position where they're not at danger of a big rain. So let's try to publish those kind of things to inform the public about what we're doing and why we're doing it. So that was just going to be my request. I meant to say it before, but that's all I got.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see. We're gonna move on to the next item.
Oh, wait, I get my answers to why we can't do 100 feet.
100 feet. All from my 2 cents before the parish president does is that if the rain that we got Sunday happens, you got to try to bag and block 100 feet of Bayou Manchac from getting into the swamp.
But if it had been done earlier at 100 feet, the water levels would be so low that you wouldn't have had the problems with that rain, and you would
Not
have had the time to do it.
Manchac. I mean, Manchac would still be at the level it's at.
But it's possible you do it done at 100. I'm just curious as to why we can't. That's all.
Could I say something? Hey, let's. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Look, hey.
We did it in
Look,
2016.
Okay.
We did it
okay.
in 2016.
All right. Let's just.
Look, I appreciate the participation, I do, but whenever everybody starts yelling from the crowd, it just makes it go off the rails.
Let's move on.
Move on to letter D.
Hold on.
I can't hear what she's saying.
President wants to talk.
Let's just move on. Or let.
Yeah, Mr. President.
See if I'm on. I think so. So we contacted Stoka. Stoka has been spot on with his analysis of the cut, and I told him so today. We had got with the cuts that we have and the rate at which Manchac, there's a 0.3 difference, and you can go to the gauges and look. As Manchac falls, Bluff Swamp falls in parallel. We're not putting on any additional water. It is a perfect parallel drop. And so opening another cut could cause issue with Manchac rising and us ending up in a lawsuit or in other problems or flooding other people. It is in parallel. Stoker presented that data to me, and it's been spot on. And so, and I told him today that was the case. That's why we haven't done any additional cuts. We don't have to open the one. We can just make an additional cut. If we get enough head flow that calls for that, we'll do that. It's not a problem. But at the current fall, it is in parallel with that. Stoker, do you want to, are you just going, it's okay, you don't have to answer. The pumps, when I made that call and Terry supported that call, was because these people were fighting for inches. And that's what those pumps provide. And I'll do it every time because that's what we got drainage money there for. And that's why I made that decision. If we can say, well, this should have been done earlier, I can't go back in time. All I can do is what I can do tomorrow. And so we can all quarterback chair Monday morning and talk about how you should have threw the pass, what receiver was open. It does nobody any good. Let's focus on what we can do tomorrow because that's all we can do. That's my comments. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Let's see. We're going to move on to item 7D. Approval to enter into a contract with Prime Controls for the installation Have a motion from Councilman Mason. I'm Malonson.
It is a long meeting.
Good night. So we have a motion from Councilman Mason. No second. I'm a second.
I'll second.
Yeah, I'm a second. Okay, we got a second from Councilman Lawler.
For discussion purposes.
Huh?
We want to
Okay.
discuss it.
All right. Let's see. All right, Mr. White is back. Discussion.
Oh, now I'm about to get my notes back out that I made earlier. Yeah, so I'm not against the rain gauges. I just, again, just like anything, I'd like to see what the benefit, with our current systems, what does by the minute rain gauges give us? And, you know, I know you're going to comment, that's fine. I would just like us to defer, and I'd like to see more what you got, just like I talked about the pumps. What are we going to learn with up to the minute on the ones you pick? Ron, I've asked you. How do we operate differently than today? But I'd like to see it lined out. I'd like to see it in procedure, like this is the kind of things, just seeing what that project, I don't doubt that they could help us, but I want to hear more about it before I get something 3 days ago and have to make a decision when we're getting asked to do small projects. I just want to hear, you know, and you can just listen. I just want to see more planning.
Yeah, I had the same sort of questions, really, is just, you know, what is the benefit that we're going to get out of this? How would that have changed, you know, how we reacted to the last rainfall, having up to date, I say up to date, but minute by minute rainfall versus hour by hour?
I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna go to CAG, let CAG answer his question, and then you can hit all of them at one time.
I'm not lit up.
You
Oh,
Okay,
there you go. Okay. I parallel what Councilman Wagasback said. The proof is in the details, and I don't think we have quite enough here to answer all the questions. Number one, we're gonna buy a limited number of these. Where will they be located? What results can we expect from them? And I think looking at the proposal, it's just for the equipment, and it doesn't include cost of installation and what it might cost for us to have people to monitor this equipment. So I'd like to see more detail. Like I said, I'm not against it. I think if we can get real-time gauges on where the water is and where it's flowing, how fast it's flowing, the depth, that's going to be tremendously helpful. But, you know, the proof's in the pudding, and I'd like to see more detail. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Ms. Casso.
Thank you. So I had a question today that the president and I talked about, or maybe it was a day ago, how much, when the rain fell on Sunday, how much was the water going to rise in the Bluff Swamp? I got that request from 2 citizens who live back there almost immediately. What can I expect? And I understand why, because they'd just gotten the water out of their house, and probably just by inches. And so they were very concerned about how much that would rise. I have not yet been able to tell them. So although I heard it tonight from Mr. John, they all heard it at the same time that I did. So would having this rain gauge have been able to help us in that calculation? Or is that something we can learn without these rain gauges? I'm totally ignorant as far as how that would work. I need to understand more about what this information would tell us and how we could benefit from it.
All right, good?
Yeah,
All right,
I'm good.
All right, I'm gonna move on to Parish President, and you can address their questions, sir.
Yep. So I don't know of a topic that we haven't covered more on than this for at least 12 months. So when we all visited Jefferson Parish, we looked at their SCADA system, how they operated. We all asked questions. Well, how's the benefit of this? We see in real time. We know when to turn the pumps on. We're able to do more accurate calculations. a lot of these USGS gauges don't have rain gauges on them. So the benefit of having that would allow our modelers to calculate rain in different areas based on those rain gauges to be better modeling to tell us what rise and what fall we may have in our canals. And that SCADA system of having that, when we went to Harris County, many of us, some of us didn't have the privilege, and thank you, Mr. Malonsaw, for putting that trip, because it was one of the most knowledgeable trips that I have ever been on since I've been in parish government. You go to police jury conferences and you go all this other stuff, you don't learn anything. We were able to go to Harris County and look at actual how they operated, and this is one of the core components.
Oh. There you go.
My 3 minutes is up.
Sorry.
It's typical. So this was one of, am I on?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's still blinking. We got some technology things to work on here. This was one of the components that they said, this is vital. Look how many we have. And many of us were there to ask those questions. Look at the gauges, go through them, look at the canal. We were standing right next to the canals as we were talking about the gauges. How does this benefit? I mean, not only us in our decision making, think of the benefit to the residents, to know up to the minute time that they can look at this and they can benefit from this. Not only us and us making internal decisions. Some of these USA, not only do they not have rain gauges, they take 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour delay. Well, we get 4 inches in 2 hours. What is that going to do? How does that prepare us? And this is why we went to Harris County, talking about forecasting, talking about planning. This is the thing that they did. I mean, this is it. We all were there, most of us. And so we were able to ask those questions and those benefits. And this is how this came up. This is how this got on this agenda. It's because we all went to Jefferson Parish. We went to Harris County. We asked those questions. We talked at length. They were available for us to ask any question that we wanted. I don't know why this is any short than a sure shot in getting this data not only for us and our modelers, but also for every Ascension Parish resident that will benefit from these. Thanks.
I'm gonna comment real quick. Just that, look, the $198,000. We have to start somewhere, and that was my goal. You know, to start with 10 of them at 10 existing USGS sites. We put ours right next to theirs. It makes the installation cheaper. Electricity and all that stuff still there. So, I mean, that was my intention. That's my goal. You know, we get 10, we start, and we talk about multi-year budgeting a lot. You know, I would like to see $300,000-$400,000 a year for the next 3, 4, 5 years and build this inventory up to, 40, 50 rain gauges across the parish. And then so as we expand, as we get more, we develop our policy on our river levels when we do what. And, I was just hoping to get started now. And that was the intention. And my wife texted me, dude guys hit a 2-run bomb over center field wall, bottom of the first. All right, Mr. Wagesback.
Yeah, so I'll just go. So I did go to Houston. I didn't go to Jefferson Parish. I don't know those. I know that Houston has no pumps, by the way, if anybody was wondering. Blew my mind.
Yeah.
Houston does not have one pump in their system. $3 billion a year, they don't have one pump. Jefferson Parish has a lot of pumps. If I understand what I've heard, they have a lot of variable speed pumps. So when they use this system, they are able to throttle up and down on their pumps, pump it to different. I guess that's my issue with spending the money before we know what we're going to do with them. So I will support it. I'd like to see a little more about exactly how we're going to use them. I'd actually like to see from HNTB, tell us how they're going to benefit the models, and tell us, and let's do a project on installing them everywhere, just like Chase wants, but let's plan it, and let's not just throw them up and then decide what to do with them. Let's decide what we're going to do with them, and then start throwing them up. Does that take 6 months? I don't know. I mean, I would just say, how does it feed into our current system? How are you going to make decisions? I mean, I think the public, like you said, I mean, telling somebody to look at a rain gauge and not be scared about their house, I mean, it doesn't help. It doesn't help with the inundation maps. It doesn't help predict weather. We were told that. I asked that question. Does this help you predict a flash flood? And the meteorologist that runs Harris County said, absolutely not. But, no, he did say that. Well, let's not put him on the spot, but. Okay. Well. Well, then, hey, so I'll just go here. I mean, I would rather see deferred a month. If he has a plan and you guys have a project, then present that before we actually vote on the item. I mean,
I just like to say, I do have intimate knowledge of Jefferson Parish system. I was a former director of the West Jefferson Levee District.
Right.
And the Algiers Levee District. We worked closely with them. We ran the largest pump station in the world at Slough West. We had one at Harvey Canal and one at, we also had one at Bayou Signet. The SCADA system helps you in your timing. And Jefferson Parish is so flat, and you do need pumps to get the water out. Every minute counts. So having that SCADA system in the canals telling you how the water is reacting, where the rain's coming from, helps you kick, and the variable speed pumps, that's a very good point. Right. They don't burn fuel just to burn fuel. They throttle them up as much as they need, and they can throttle them down when needed. But that SCADA system tells them in real time what that water level elevation is doing inside of their canals. So I'm of the opinion that gauges are good. They can't hurt you, certainly. So.
Hey, I'll just put it this way. Just wait a month. I'll come talk to you, Clint. I mean, let's talk about what the project looks like. I mean, I don't think I'm asking for anything. You say we've been talking about it for a year, but we're talking about it in other systems. He just said they have different. They can throttle up and down. Tell me how it benefits us. I mean, that's all I'm asking.
Hi, Jason Phillips with Prime Controls. Yeah, as far as the throttling up and down, they do have that capability at Jefferson Parish, but a lot of their big engines, they're just automated. So when the levels kick on, those pumps go straight up to a certain RPMs, and they have a set point like that. So they're not throttling up and down. They use those level readings to read all the canal levels, like from a faraway area. So pop-up storms, things like that. They can see what's going on far away to determine what they're going to do at their main pump station. They do have a lot of lift stations that pump to those big stations, and I think that's what you're referring to, right? So from a SCADA perspective, they can look at those stations and make sure they're operating correctly because they're unmanned, right? So as far as the sites that we're talking about, it's not just that they're going to be pulled, and y'all saying once a minute, but we're talking seconds. And the system we're presently putting in for y'all, for your operators to monitor your pump stations and what's going on there, these sites will connect, talk to those, these sites will be pulled by that system, and the information coming into there will be viewable by all of y'all, by anybody that wants to, because it's unlimited licenses. But you talked about not being able to access this data from the internet, but with the system that we're putting in right now, the software, you can. That is possible. So, and if this is going to be in real-time data, then y'all can see that and help y'all to make decisions on what to do next with your stations. Jefferson Parish currently has 65 rain gauges throughout their entire parish. So the software that we're putting in for y'all now, with the licensing you have, you can add to that and cover this whole parish with the rain information, rainfall, canal levels at any spot you want to. So I'm not sure if that answered the question or if you got more. I'm trying to understand what your main point is.
That's great. I mean, so what I got in preparation for this was your proposal, how many sites, what the installation, and I got some spec sheets, which I want to prepare to understand, but what you're talking about, how it feeds into a central computer and what it tells us, I've not heard anything about that. That would be my comment. I mean, that's exactly my comment. So, I mean, that all sounds great.
Yes.
It'd be great to hear that or see something of project scope before, I just see a spec sheet that says what you're selling us. I mean, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm asking for.
Good?
I'm more out.
I'll just quit, so you do whatever y'all gotta do. I'd make a motion to defer so we could hear more about what you said. I mean, I'd like to see you show up and talk first about all this and how it feeds in the system. I mean, that's all I'm asking. I'm willing to support.
Yeah.
Is that a motion?
I'd make a motion to defer and let's talk about what this project looks like and let's support it. Let's do it.
Second by Mr. Cagnalotti. Hang on, I gotta skip through. Mr. Mason, you still want to talk?
Yeah. I have a question. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Jason Phillips.
Okay, Jason. Michael, nice to meet you.
You too.
So let's say, just hypothetically, we agreed to do this tonight, and we spent the $200,000 that's being requested on these gauges tonight. How long before, if we got them in, if we ordered tonight and got the work order, everything tonight, how long would they be until they get into operation?
Well, as you know, lead times right now on materials, like I would have to check on that, right? But
roundabout.
Yeah, I'd say 3 months, 3 to 6
3
months we could do it. Because
3
the
to 6
top-end
months.
SCADA system is going to be in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So then it's just a matter of these sites going in and communicating back.
Okay. All right, that was, my concern was with hurricane season coming up, I didn't know what your lead time was, and I mean, those would be great to have in place for hurricane season, because
Yeah,
that's
and I
when
don't want to
obviously-
promise a certain lead time. I'm
Exactly,
just-
that's why and that's
Yeah.
why I was wondering if we passed it tonight, could we possibly have it in time for hurricane season, but it's a maybe, right? It's the best we can get.
Right now, yes. I'm not going to, yeah.
I got you, okay, thank you, that's all, Chair.
Yeah, I'd just like for the next meeting, Ron and Clint, if y'all could come and maybe show how, like a real world event, like take the rainfall that we had last week and show how operations would have been different, to show the public how this is going to benefit them. Say, hey, this is what we would have done differently last time had we had this second by second system in place. That way we'll really know, hey, this is the benefit we're getting, and the public can see it also. So I'd like to make that, I'd like to see that next time, and the total cost with monitoring and all that kind of stuff. Do we need to have employees monitoring this all the time?
It would be your decision. The software has alarm notification, so if there's certain critical areas where a canal level, you want to know it, when it gets to a certain point, you can do emails,
I'm not
texts,
good at making those
phone.
decisions. What I mean by that is I don't know enough about this to say we do or don't. What is your recommendation?
As far as,
If we
ask the
need-
question again?
Do we
Yeah.
need like employees monitoring this system the entire time, or is this something that kind of goes on its own? I'm seeing a no, probably.
I mean, I don't, do you need employees monitoring this all the time?
I'm just not too familiar with the system. I didn't know if we had to have somebody going out to these gauges all the time, but apparently not. Apparently we'll be.
Yeah, not going out to the gauges. You talking about maintaining them? Is that what you're asking?
Whether it's
Like the
maintenance
sites?
cost, or do we have to have somebody sit in front of a computer looking at all the information constantly?
I mean, that depends on the weather or.
Okay.
I mean, I don't really know how to answer that question because this is drainage, so it's not raining all the time. I mean, I'm kind of trying to understand. You have man pump station, right?
Yes.
Marvin Bro? They're all there all the time? That's correct. I'm just.
Yes, yeah,
confirming that. I'm
that's-
making sure, yeah. So at that particular station, if you had this software there, that operator, while he's monitoring his station, could also be monitoring that station.
Oh, that's cool.
At all these remote sites. There was a problem, an alarm would come up to notify them. Is that kind of?
Yeah, no,
Does that
that's
clarify
interesting.
what you're asking? Yeah, I'm
yeah.
trying to make
No,
sure.
it
I'm
does, it
answering
does, because I was talking to one of the guys, he's not here right now, that runs some of the locks, and we're talking about automating those. So he wouldn't have to go sit out there in the rain. I mean, he
Oh,
lives on the ridge,
absolutely.
and he
Yeah,
has to go sit
absolutely.
out there in the rain. I'm like, man, that's something that I'd like to see, is Ron, maybe if we could look into, what the cost is to automate some of the locks and things like that, so Jim doesn't have to go sit in the rain. It'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, so this same software will monitor like bypass gates another municipality does. So they have bypass gates, and those are on their SCADA system, so they can monitor those as well remotely.
Yeah, I think this has got a lot of potential, so look forward to hearing more about it.
Okay.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any opposition? All right, we need to do a roll call, Ms. Liz?
Just gonna open up a vote. Oh, this is gonna be exciting. I don't think I've done this in a while.
I think this is our first time voting on these.
Hello?
Yeah, I think it is.
Awesome.
Let's see.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
Wait, what are we doing?
So the
Yes, okay.
Yeah, this is a.
Just making sure I had the right
Wanted
thing.
to clarify that too. The motion is to defer.
Yeah, this is the, yes, this motion to defer.
To ask the administration to give us a full. report
Presentation.
On
Right.
these, how they would be utilized.
All right, who's not hitting their button?
Well, I don't know if it's open.
Oh, I see, Cagnalotti, okay. There we go. All right, everyone has cast their vote, Ms. Liz? All right. Motion passes with a 4-2, deferred to next month. All right, item 7E, approval to issue task order number 2 to Hartman Engineering Incorporated for drainage engineering support services an amount of not to exceed.
So moved.
We got a motion and a second. Any questions, any comments? We got a question from Mr. Wagasback. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
Ron, this is to help you out because we do not currently have a drainage engineer, correct? No, and that's great. That's why I'm saying, well, that's, and ask us for that help. We're here to give it to you. Yeah.
Good luck. I'm trying to find more.
Yeah.
Greater bidding war.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, did Stoker just say he was looking for a job? All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any opposition? No? So moved. Item 7F, renewal of professional services contract with Kim Spray South Incorporated for tree removal in Bayou Conway and other channels not to exceed $200,000.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, motion by, huh?
Turn off my microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry, let me,
Now I'm on.
no, you can't.
I was on for a while.
Y'all stop distracting. I'm sorry. We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any opposition? Any comments? So moved. Motion to go into executive session. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Liz, can we get roll call? Yeah. They scored too? All right, 6 years. We will enter into executive session.
To adjourn? And a second. Good night.